Okay, I'm ready to call the meeting to order. Just as a quick reminder, this meeting is being video recorded and broadcast. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please identify yourself so that I may make an announcement. Seeing none, I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda as it's been previewed by the school committee. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make the motion. I'll second.
Thank you, Eliza and Courtney. All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, let's go ahead and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Welcome everybody. At this point on the agenda is input from the public on listed agenda items. Just to preview a little bit of where we're headed, I think one of our biggest conversations today will be around school choice. So if you would rather wait, I can call on people during that discussion as we have a lot of answers that I think will be coming forward in that. But are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on anything on the agenda? No. Okay. Moving forward, do we have a student? We don't have a student rep.
No, they're doing finals and they're
They're
Heads down.
They're finishing out.
well, wonderful. We wish them the best on their finals. An HDA update. Do you want?
I'd just like to start by saying that later this evening, members of the Joint Labor Management Committee will be sharing the work of the Appendix E of our collective bargaining agreement. And we'd really like to point out that this work is an excellent reflection of the HTA's and the district's shared commitment to collaboration and continuous improvement, particularly regarding the educator evaluation process. The feedback from both administrators and staff on the committee has been overwhelmingly positive, highlighting the productive nature of these meetings and their contribution to strengthening our schools. I would also like to recognize 3 staff members who are retiring from the Hull Public Schools this year. It's Meg King, Nancy Hall, and Deb McCarthy. And we'd like to thank them for their many years of dedication and service to the students and families of Hull. They'll be greatly missed, and we wish them all the best in their retirement. In all of the schools, it's very busy, as we can see. They're not here. And at the high school, the class of 26 celebrated a beautiful graduation ceremony highlighted by a heartfelt commencement by address from Kyle Shaw. Undergraduate students attended the annual awards assembly this week, where last week were Subject Mastery Awards, College Book Awards, and the Mission Award were presented. The Mission Award recognizes one student at each grade level who best exemplifies the Hull High School mission. And this year's recipients were Leo Gruner, Mackenzie Neal, Colin English, and Ava Beaumier. Congratulations to all of the award winners. This week, high school students are completing final exams, and we just want to let you know the summer reading materials have been distributed. At the Jacobs School, the pre-K students celebrated graduation last Friday. The 6th graders returned from a memorable 3-day experience at Nature's Classroom, which was filled with hands-on learning, teamwork, and fun. And the middle school also enjoyed Field Day last week. It was our last competition before the announcement of this year's house champion. Bumpkin House, which is a 6th grade advisory, beat the reigning champs, which was Greenhouse. They went out to celebrate with a boat ride, a tour of the islands today. This week, 7th grade students will celebrate their graduation. Elementary students will participate in their field day activities, and we will welcome the 5th graders into their middle school advisory groups during the JMS Sorting Parrot Assembly. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Weber.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. I congratulate all of our recipients, like so many awards,
Yes,
right, happening.
yes.
just want to, on behalf of the school committee as well, echo your gratitude, the gratitude that we have for our retiring teachers who are so committed, and that we just, I don't know how we'll go on, but we will. Yes, exactly. And then if I can add one more just person that I want to just throw out in this moment, I have the microphone so I can say these things, but our senior class sponsor this year was Taylor Duhame, and she did a fantastic job of making sure that our students just felt so celebrated and everything was so well organized. So I just want to add an additional
Thank
shout
you.
out to Ms. Duhame, who is such an advocate of our students. So great. Any questions or comments? Anyone else you want to throw in there?
I found out about the reward for the field day and the advisory and of going on the boat ride to see the islands, and I just thought that was such a creative and wonderful idea. Who was the captain, or what vessel did they? Do you know the details?
I
of that?
actually don't remember his name. It's a man who lives in the community who has a boat, and he was willing to share it.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing about living in Hull that you get that sort of reward, and
Yeah.
what a fun afternoon to do. So.
Dr. Jetty knows.
Yeah, it's Dave Clinton who actually
Oh,
volunteered.
oh, okay.
So Captain Dave took the kids on a trip today.
That's great. Well, thank you to Captain Dave and all the others who organized it for the kids.
Yeah, big thank you.
Fantastic, wonderful. Okay, moving forward in our agenda, we are, the school committee has had an opportunity to review the minutes as were compiled from our May 26th meeting. Assuming there were no additional questions or concerns, is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 26th?
I just had one question. I think in the section, and I meant to just email, but then it slipped my mind. There are the years of during the evaluation topic. It says 25 to 26. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Last year, this year, 25, 26?
Yeah, it
And
was
then
just
next year is
continue
26,
with the
27.
focus of mathematics during 25, 26 school year. That comment, was that current, past, future? That was the only thing.
Comments.
As they were said.
As they were said.
Okay, so then they're right. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, great. So with that in mind, is there an approval of the minutes? A motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Courtney. Is there a second? Thanks, Brendan. All those in favor of approving May 26 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. Unanimous. Great. All right, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Jetty, who has some superintendent's business items to share.
And I'm going to head over to the podium. So the first topic is to recognize our future, some of our graduates. There are two that we want to recognize this evening. And this is falling under the guise of when our student athletes are accepted at a school. There's sort of that college signing day where the community recognizes that they've made that acceptance of heading off to play athletics at a school. But we want to recognize those who are choosing education as their future career. And we think that, we're sort of the farm team for that because they get to come to school and to experience education in this setting, and then they're choosing to dedicate their future really to this profession. And as somebody who has benefited from just a fabulous career in education, I can tell you the teachers that I had that made the imprint on me, that had me go into the desiring to stay with this and to make a life out of it myself. I had a fabulous chemistry teacher, Doc Van Bell. I give Doc all the credit for kind of inspiring in me what I wanted to then bring to the next generation. And so pausing tonight to recognize that we do have two students out of the graduates from the other day who have been accepted at a post-secondary program, and to acknowledge them, I think is really important. So I believe only one is here tonight, though. But I'm going to start with the student who is not here. Just to acknowledge that one of our future educators is Bitsy Del Maria, if I have that right, or De Maria. And so Bitsy is also going to go on to be a future educator. And again, making that choice is really key for all of us. But the person who is here tonight is Sage, and I'm going to invite Sage up for a second. because Sage has also selected a future in education. And so she's planning to attend Bridgewater State University this fall. And we just are, again, very impressed by that dedication and that commitment that she's making. And I asked Sage if she wanted to make a few comments. I told her it was totally optional. She did not need to do that or have to do that. But again, she is with us tonight with her family, and just taking a minute to acknowledge that that's a huge commitment on her part, I think is really important. So Sage, best wishes to you. Okay. So we're going to try to make this a part of what we do each year, because I just think, again, students who are going forth from the Hull Public Schools and choosing a future in education is really, really critical. So, and I want to acknowledge the teachers who have helped to foster that love of learning so that they, in turn, want to stay with us. So thank you for all you do to make that happen. And then without any further ado, I'm going to invite our athletic director, Ben Kistner, up to the podium. And Ben has a little presentation that is sort of a year-end recap of athletics for us. And the plan is in the future to do this more frequently. So our hope is to have 3 presentations next year, one after fall, one after winter, and then one after the spring sports season, so that we can kind of get a running tally of how we've done and what our numbers are looking like. So, but Ben is completing his first full year with us and has pulled some really good stuff together. So Ben, come on up. Podium is yours.
Make sure this works first. There we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. Obviously, Mr. Jetty approached me today. Being able to speak in front of you guys tonight. My name is Ben Kistner, athletic director here at Hull High School. Just going through a quick 12 slides of just some of the things we've done this past year, as well as maybe a future initiative that we're trying to look into. So, once again, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to talk more about this. First things first, our athletic participation numbers going from 2024 to 2025. We did lose about 4 students, and that senior class that we had last year was very strong in the athletics world. But you'll see in the next slide, as I introduced, that we had some 7th graders step up this year, as well as some 8th graders, and I think that kind of helped our participation percentages altogether. One of the things that I did want to do coming into it was to get more students involved, not just in the athletic program in terms of being competitive, but just some opportunities for maybe student managers as well. And that's, record keeping, stat keeping, getting waters, getting balls, just things in nature of that I want to get more kids involved, even though they don't have a lot of competitive side to them. I think that's really important to make sure we have. So we actually did increase that number. We had 11% or 11 increase from 2024 to 2025 to now 25-26. Just looking at one of the SMART goals that I did have, although we did lose 4 athletes from last year to this year, I do think we definitely increased our participation percentages. So like I said, the 7th grade coming in, as well as the 8th grade, current 8th grade, we actually added a lot of numbers. I have to give a lot of benefit to the girls basketball program. We had 9 last year. We raised that number to 19 this year, as well as JV baseball. We were able to bring that number from 13 to 21. We actually have some notable in girls lacrosse. We had 5 brand new this year, as well as softball also had 5 new. Which softball finally came back to varsity status. That's a huge improvement for them. I definitely want to commend them for that. One of the biggest things I wanted to kind of see this upcoming year is to have better communication. And I think some of that was due to the newsletter that I decided to put out. Like I said, the biggest thing was just enhancing some of our stakeholder communication. And the goal was to just, like I said, bring the gap between both stakeholders involved, whether that's parents, student athletes. We do have the whole times they are included in it. Any of the coaches that are outside the district, as well as all of our teachers that are inside the district. I think it was just cool to have everybody understand bi-weekly one piece of information that we have just from athletics piece and be able to ask questions when they can or just kind of catch up on some key things. Some of the things that we did highlight was, student athlete spotlight. So every bi-week we would have a student athlete that would step up both in the male and the female participation, and just kind of see, hey, you know what, these guys did a really good job in their respective sports. I think we got to showcase that and highlight it. One of the other things, and I have to give a huge applaud to Carrie Ryan. She helped me kind of get an athletic achievement for the alumni also. Just some alumni that have been here for the past 4 years and just kind of get some understanding of what they're doing moving forward. Similar to Dr. Jetty, bringing in some of the education piece to it. I think it's really cool that we highlight those that have been here before and now they're going on and doing great things. One of the other things I wanted to bring in was just kind of the captain's camp altogether. I think it's really important for not only we understand what captains look like when we have them with our programs, but also just to kind of explain to them what our expectations are, one, but then two, some of the things that we can bring to them that hopefully they can enhance their captainship and their leadership within their sports. One of the first half of the dialogue that we usually do, and we'll bring them in during our advisory periods. We're not able to do it every single advisory, but we try to as much as possible. The first is the open dialogue, which is mainly just asking questions, kind of keep that open dialogue. And what I've found that comes out of that is, we have a captain in boys soccer that could explain the situation that they're having with during their season, that girls soccer also may have a similar situation. And that dialogue is just amazing to have because they're able to come together and kind of think of key solutions together rather than just one captain going through it and not the other without knowing each other. So that was a huge piece of it. And then the second half of it is just kind of going through a curriculum piece. Whether that's the self-determination theory, trying to figure out what goals they have throughout the season, what postseason goals they might have coming up in the season, as well as SWOT analysis and the inverted U principle. So just some of the things that, like I said, would just kind of go through with the captains in terms of what we're doing. One of the other things that we did put into place was our Under Armour agreement. We signed a 4-year deal with Under Armour. So, not just the merchandise, not just the swag, but just the jersey deal that we did with them. Every single jersey is going to have an Under Armour logo on them. And I think just the fabric, the material is awesome. And I think what's awesome about it too is that the student athletes, I get to allow them to kind of design and kind of pick what they want to do with the jerseys as well. So it definitely brings in a lot of input from them because at the end of the day, we're not the ones putting the jersey on our bodies. It's mainly them. So I thought that was huge. This was notable in boys basketball and with softball. Sage, I know you're up on the stage here now. Even though you don't want to talk, we had to give you another shout out. This past year we had boys soccer, boys basketball, girls lacrosse, and softball all get varsity jerseys. Next year that rollout is going to be now in girls soccer, girls basketball, baseball should be able to have theirs up, and in boys lacrosse. So that's what we're going to be doing. The year after that we'll have football and cheerleading as well. Okay. One of the other things that we wanted to kind of put together was an athletic trainer update and plan. We did try to have a service this past year. It was successful throughout a good 2/3 of the fall season, but then we kind of fell apart with the company in terms of what that looked like. And the company wasn't able to provide EMT services with us moving forward after that. Since then, we've terminated our contract with them, and we've gone through mainly EMTs. Looking forward, we are going to go through probably the EMT service with the whole fire department in terms of what this looks like. And that's mainly for games. We can look into the future to see if we can try to provide some coverages for both practices and kind of that preventative maintenance piece as well. A couple other things that we wanted to talk to you about was user fees. Obviously, this is our current fee and cap structure. The first sport is $250, second sport is $175, and then $150 for the third, as well as caps both for student athlete individuals and for families. We understand that there are families that need maybe financial assistance. I mean, we do have that in place. Usually in my newsletters, I'll put it out every bi-week, as well as an introduction parent email that we'll get out before the season starts. So we'll make sure that we have at least the availability for us to have that in place for them. Looking at this year alone, we do have some outstanding fees. We're sitting at about $4,700 across 19 families. That number has gone down today after getting out another email to try to get on these families to make sure they send their user fees in. Just to give an update too, I think the communication process is huge in this, and that's obviously one with the newsletter that we put out bi-weekly, but also just every 2 to 3 weeks, just kind of get those reminders out there. We understand that families have a lot going on, as well as everybody else in the world. So, like I said, just to kind of get that reminder out there. One of the things that we are going to put in place moving forward, if we haven't already, is that we are going to be having a no tryout eligibility. So we do want families to make sure that they get their user fees in from the previous year to make sure they're eligible for that upcoming year, and that is going from the spring season to the fall. Last thing but not least, I do have a sports registration update. So when I actually took the job over in March last year, we had we used a Google form, and I thought the process through that was a little dicey. I think that it was better for us to have a more streamlined service that we can go through for, uploaded physicals, impact testing, things of that nature, just an abundance of information that all of our families need to know to make sure we're in compliance with both the sports here at Hull High School and with the MIAA. Since then, we put in arbiter registration. We quickly found out that process wasn't the best. After getting some feedback from this past year, both from coaches and from families to see how that process was worked, we decided we were going to go in a different route. And that route is now final forms. Like I said, our priorities right now are just to streamline everything. We want to be able to have user compatibility. We want to make sure that all the physical management comes into place, and that's both with the school nurse, myself, and our upper administration to make sure everything is in on time. And just as well as just the policy acknowledgements that we have, whether it's code of conducts, making sure we're up to date with grades, things of that nature. So, the reasoning for our switch here is after getting some of the feedback from our key stakeholders, specifically our parents and with our coaches, we decided that we were going to go towards final forms. And we actually have, the user-friendly experience with it. They actually have an app that we can download for our parents and for coaches to have. So it's an easier streamline for that way to happen, as well as just simplified documentation. So whenever a physical gets uploaded, whenever impact testing gets done, usually that stays with the portal of that family right away. So you don't have to keep uploading it after every single season and try to get all that information all together. Like we said, we know everybody has a lot going on, so it's very important that we try to make this as easy as possible for everybody involved. That's all I got. There's your athletics update here in 2025, 2026.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Questions, comments from the school committee?
I have two questions. For the EMT service, and I know it's through the town, but is that another expense, or is it considered like a detail, or?
I believe the contract as of right now, and don't quote me on it, but I believe it's around $13,000 that we're doing through the service with them.
Okay. And then for the financial hardship, is that something a family could, we've all gone through this where you're kind of starting off strong and then you're like, oh gosh, I have to pay this now. So can they apply anytime?
They can apply anytime. Usually what we'll do, and I didn't do this past year, but I'm going to look at like free and reduced lunch first. If they're eligible for that, I think they almost get a bypass for us in the
gonna be my
athletics world too.
follow-up. Yeah,
But I think that that's something that we can definitely look into and at least have a conversation with the family to kind of see where they're at.
That's good, okay. And I just looked up the final forms. It seems like it's a good platform to keep everything, it's like real time, up to date, if there's any health emergencies or something that pops up, rosters and all that, so that's great.
Yep.
Good find.
Thank you.
Other questions on this
You
side?
mentioned SWOT analysis, was in relation to the kids running around SWOT analysis. As the director of athletics, what's your own take on the SWOT analysis of our own program here in Hull?
You want currently or do you want future?
I want both.
Okay, so currently I think it's really cool to have a lot of our student athletes in terms of our strengths, right? We have a lot of 8th graders that are competing under the same umbrella as some of our juniors and seniors. I think what is really cool about that is they get to learn from the ones that see it before them, so our culture is able to kind of provide that better experience for them. I think that's really huge to have. And we actually just saw that in girls soccer. We had a lot of our younger classmen step up and they won a state championship because of it. Looking for the future, I do think the EMT service, I think we have a much better process of trying to go through an athletic trainer. So I'm going to continue to try to work through that process of having that. I do see that as a threat to us in the future of not having a trainer. And I think part of the reason being is because we just have that extra set of eyes on everything, that extra person that kids can go to and be able to establish a really good relationship with. So currently we don't have that. I do see that as a threat for us. So to keep it as short as I could, we could definitely talk further about kind of the
Any
SWOT analysis.
opportunities, I guess?
Say that again?
Any other opportunities?
A lot of the opportunities I see moving forward, I think, just kind of seeing in the next 3 to 5 years where our student athletes are going to be. I know that obviously we all know that our student athlete rate is going to, I think, drop only because our enrollment size are going to get smaller. So we have to find new ways to be initiative in that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I have a couple of questions. I think the slides are great, a lot of information, and I think year over year, I don't know what everybody else's, thoughts are, but I think that the athletic department has grown night and day. So I appreciate all the work that you've done, all the coaches have done, and everything like that to get it where it is today. I think it was a pretty successful year, given all the teams and where they landed. So out of the 179, I know that we're slightly down year over year. Do you know how many 7th and 8th graders are included in that 179?
8th graders, I believe, we're sitting around 10% of the total. We did bring in 10 7th graders for both girls soccer and with JV baseball. So 10 altogether in terms of both those programs.
Okay.
And we've only initiated those 7th grade numbers in those 2 programs. I'm happy to look at other programs as well.
Yeah, and so is that the plan, is to look at it sport by sport?
Yes,
Going
as of
forward?
right now, yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that is just a communication piece between us and the youth. I definitely want to try to get on my coaches to spend a little more time to try to create those relationships with the youth so we can kind of see what the numbers look like moving forward.
Okay, great. I'm just trying to think here. I didn't make notes. I made mental notes. I think the highlights, the alumni achievement is huge, just to see what recent graduates are doing in college is fun and exciting that, you know, the students can take a peek at that, and even parents, and so I think that's great. Trying to think what else. Oh, the AT. So it is relieving to hear that you are going to continue to push to try to find an athletic trainer, because I do think that is a huge risk there for our student athletes, our coaches, and in our school district, quite honestly. I think it's important to have, you know, somebody here, and I know that the districts, everybody is having an issue with athletic trainers. But it is important, right? I know our coaches, you know, they're at practice, there's nobody overseeing those practices from a, you know, if
Medical
an
standpoint.
injury, yes. If some player gets hurt, you know, they don't want to be liable, they have the whole team there, they're trying to run a practice, so I think that is huge. What is the difference in qualifications on an EMT or an athletic trainer versus an EMT? Do you know?
Athletic trainer, you have to go through like a 4-year bachelor degree
Okay.
to receive that. And I think the biggest difference that we'll see is athletic trainers are able to take, let's say, God forbid, somebody gets hurt in a game, right? They're able to go out, assess, and then send them back in if they're able to. Usually through an EMT service, they have to get them out and they cannot go back in. So that's another huge downfall that we have if we're going through an EMT service.
Okay. And then an EMT, they will show up to a game early, right? Maybe like 15, 30 minutes early to a game, but they are not gonna wrap an ankle or a knee or a hammy or anything like that, right?
As of right now, no. I believe they might be looking into that to see if that's something they can do moving forward. But
Okay.
as of right now, I wouldn't want that to happen.
Okay,
And a lot of that is just liability for the school, especially if they're not authorized to be able to do that.
for sure.
So what happens if a student is injured if the EMT can't do basic first aid?
They can do basic first aid. It's more of just like wrapping, you know, let's say a kid has an Achilles that is maybe more inflamed than normal, right? You can have wrapping around that to kind of prevent that from happening. Same thing with like KT tape. They wouldn't be able to apply KT tape in a way that an athletic trainer would be able to.
Yeah, so an athletic trainer would develop or know the injuries that are on hand today with each team and work with that student athlete to say.
Wrap so they can play,
Correct.
not wrap because they got hurt just then.
Yes.
Correct.
Sorry.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, I'm not sporty mom.
Hey, we'll get you up to speed. No worries.
Can I also clarify then, what is the first responder training that our coaches receive? Are they first aid, like?
Yeah. So it's required by the MIAA. You have to be certified in concussion, first aid, CPR, and AED.
Okay. And so just to put it out there, we are specifically looking for a full-time athletic trainer, or what are we looking for?
We always are,
on
yes.
TV?
Yes, we always are. As of right now, we've come up short. And like I said, that's not just happening here in Hull. There's a lot of school districts around that are either trying to find a full-time person right now, or they're going through a service, and even the services can't provide a lot of people. So I think there's kind of a bigger conversation around the athletic training world that we have to have,
Yeah.
but definitely always looking for someone, yes.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, anyone else from the school committee? No? I think there was a question for the school committee from the audience, right? Can you clarify it through the school committee, and then I'm sure we can direct it to him?
Yeah, I actually.
Oh, and name and address.
Oh, Nicole Palermo, 20 Edgewater Road, Hull. This is just a comment of thank you. Thank you to the whole school committee for 12, maybe 18 years of supporting our kids from 2017 graduate to 2026. So thank you all. It's a very well-run machine, and although we're not here all the time, we witness and watch and read. So thank you. But in addition to that, we have watched since 2004 the changes, the dramatic changes that have happened, because we were in boosters before the kids were in high school, and the dramatic change that Ben has made in communication just this year, like, it has been incredible. That newsletter just helps overall. I was able to know when games were that, like, my nieces and nephews, and the communication was just really nice. And I even said, I'm not opting out of this for next year because I like want to receive the information. I want to be able to like participate as a resident and not a parent. So it's just a thank you.
Oh, that's so nice. Yes, and I would echo it now, since it's back to you as well, in that I agree that newsletter has just been a fantastic way for us to keep an eye on everything that's going. And I wonder if I can just sort of, thank you again, that was nice. And also, I wonder, just to sort of ground us as well, like, one thing I'd love to know, maybe in future reports, is I would love to hear, we know out there that the data supports that our student athletes are more likely to be in school every day. They are more likely to have strong relationships with their teachers and their coaches, and have, and oftentimes even be more academically, I don't know, prosperous. What's the word I'm looking for? Prolific? You know what I'm saying. They're doing better. So I would love to hear a little bit more about how our student athletes are doing academically as well. I think that would be something that would be fantastic to know about in the future, since that's, ultimately the goal.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Final comments? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Jetty, what's next?
So next is a little topic called school choice.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to get back to the school committee after the vote at the last meeting, and I'd like to kind of walk through the document that I shared with the school committee. It's been shared publicly also. But,
Do you want to, should we put it on the screen or no?
I have no idea how that's getting up there.
Okay.
I can put it on there. Do you want it on there?
We can?
I don't think it's a bad idea,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Sorry, I'm springing this on you.
I do not mind. I just,
Okay. Just to give everyone, like, you make sure that we're all sharing, like, somebody might not have their phone, or they're be able
Sure.
to see it right in the moment, right? Okay, you want to start
Matt,
while
pulls it up.
yeah.
Let me just plug ahead a little bit.
Okay.
So the first item that's on this document is the FAQ list from DESE that we had shared with the school committee. So I just wanted to kind of park that so that we have the question and answers that are provided directly from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. The second item is a link to, I'm going to call it a Lisa's Green Dot Graph, because that is the school choice rankings from schoolchoicema.com. And so that was referenced in the last meeting. I just want to make sure everybody had the link to that. The third thing are, there are two districts that I've kind of zeroed in on.
I don't know if they can reach from here.
Thank you.
I don't know.
I'll try.
Okay.
The third thing is are two districts. So it's Norton, which has 2,400 students, and Avon, that has 732. Spoke with both superintendents regarding their school choice experience, and some of the questions and answers that follow come from the dialogue relative to the experience in those two districts. They're kind of different districts. One is larger and smaller. Obviously, that's a difference. One of the districts has about 10% of the population. The other has about 30% of the population being choice students. So, and they talked about their experience. The links go to their website so that you can see the way each of the districts is actually approaching having families apply for a seat in their choice program, and it just gives you a sense of how they're coming at it. One of the districts talked about getting a phone call from the folks at DESE because they were asking questions on the application that are not permitted. And so the caution was, don't do that. Make sure that you're following what the law says relative to how you go about applying. So you can't ask, for example, that a copy of a student's IEP get submitted with an application. That's out of bounds. And so I also think one of the districts has a paper-driven process. One is more of an online process. I would support more of the electronic online version. But I wanted to give you the comparison of how two districts are approaching that. Item number 5, and I want to take a minute to talk about this report. So this is a report that we submit every year. It's called School Attending Children Report. It's kind of an awful name because I don't know that it really says what it is. But basically, districts across the Commonwealth are asked to report the children who reside in their town, and then where is it that they are attending school. And I think this is like a really key report for us to pause on for a minute, because you know, in the urban legend of Hull is that we're losing a lot of kids. And I would say every kid is a loss, right? So I mean, I think every child has a space and belonging in our public schools. But how does it compare is the question. And I think this is the graph or chart that gets as close as possible to answering that. So if you look, you can see Hull highlighted in blue, and it tells you exactly how many students are attending collaboratives, how many are attending charter schools, how many are attending out-of-district public schools, how many are being homeschooled, how many are in-state private and parochial schools, how many are out-of-state private and parochial schools. And you end up, after you do all the math on that, with a number all the way over in the far right-hand column titled
Yeah.
percent
Maggie,
public.
can we pull this up? I'm sorry.
Oh, I could
Or
not
you
do
can
that
do
on
it?
the clicker,
Oh, I'm
but
sorry.
if you know how. And the number that's there for Hull is 90.1%, right? And so that's the number of students who are here in our public schools who reside here in town. And then you can see the breakdown of where else they are if they're not with us, okay? I took and this is available on DESE's website, so this is not anything that's a mystery, right? We report our numbers, everybody else reports their numbers. And then I just did an analysis to come up with the Massachusetts average because they did not have that, so it was simply totaling up columns.
So
And
before you say that though, so 90.1% of students who live in Hull attend Hull Public Schools, is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
It's not the total of public schools, so if they're out-of-district public schools?
No, they attend
Sure.
Hull.
Right, because it says 18, that's why I'm asking if it just says percent public, it's not, does that include out-of-district public school?
It does, because, sorry, the 672,
That's just saying public schools, not Hull Public Schools. So our number is 634, I'm guessing. The
Yeah,
local
so
pub-
the 90.1 is the 634 divided by the 672.
Mm-hmm.
So to get our local, so we're
okay,
at
hang on a
80,
second.
we're at 85 local.
85%.
Well, hang
Correct.
on, this is the number from DESE, so if we're gonna change the calculation, it's not gonna compare, right? So the 90.1, I believe, is the 672 divided by the 746,
That makes sense.
right? So there are 672 total public students out of the 746 eligible. So who are the others? And if we look at it, you can see you've got the in-state private and parochial, the 60 students. The homeschool is 14. I wouldn't have them in the total. But the 18 and 10 that are attending charter schools and collaboratives and out of districts are in our number because those are public schools. Yeah.
They're also purporting that there's nobody out of state, which I know a few kids are out of state. Personally, friends of mine's kids, so I question the database or the data set.
And this data is coming from us.
Out-of-state
We're-
private.
We're,
Right.
we're reporting this number based upon the knowledge that we have.
I know, but I know that's wrong. That part is wrong.
But it's possible, we don't, yes, because I said the exact same thing when I first looked at this. I was like, I'm pretty sure I know of at least one student who went out of state.
Right.
But what we don't know is that, I mean, they could we don't know if they're considered in, like, one of the other columns.
But either way,
right?
it's
Like-
not going to be a huge swing. you know.
Right, the numbers are, yes,
Yeah.
I think the question is, yes, let me say it this way. I think regardless of which column each kid, like, the total number doesn't necessarily have, like, change, or if it does, it's not significant. But I think for the purposes of this conversation, it's really interesting, because we do have this conversation a lot about how many students do we not educate of our own kids?
Right.
And for the purpose of this conversation, because I think the way that Mike's going, we can, in order to compare apples to apples across other districts, let's use this percent public to say how Hull compares to its neighbors, because that's the question. Like, the question I asked him was, relative to our neighbors, do we lose a lot of students? Are we not, are we falling behind some of our what do we call it, DART districts? Is it districts?
So the
Go ahead.
color coding on this, the yellow scale districts are the DART, which is the state says these are your comparative districts based on size, based on demographics. These are the districts that you should be comparing yourself to when it comes to outcomes, because they are similar to Hull. The green ones are the local districts, so Hingham, Cohasset, Weymouth, Situate, and Norwell
Light
are.
blue.
Sorry?
Light blue.
Oh, on his screen, it definitely looks green. It's
Interesting.
light blue on mine too. But anyway,
Oh.
Hingham, Cohasset, what'd you say? Weymouth.
It's like, did we just find out your color?
Situate.
Weymouth, Situate, and Norwell are the local districts that we're paying attention to.
We've got a PDF version, a
fine.
screenshot apparently.
Ignore the mic. Keep going.
You might have a pink line, I have a sort of reddish
have a
line,
pink
but that's the Massachusetts average. Like I said, I calculated that. So again, looking at the data for 1.8 million youth across the Commonwealth,
Just hang on,
you
I'll
can
run
see
it
that that percent public is 91.6, so we're slightly under that, but not far under it. And then Hull is in blue as the comparison. So, so a couple of things to point out from this. That's our number compared to the state. And, the state comparison is tricky because, you've got big cities that are in there. And so you're comparing yourself way beyond a small town. You've got geographic differences that are in there. So you're comparing yourself with that number. It includes, the Berkshires, for example, and not necessarily what we have. So we just want to keep that in mind, that we have to also understand the local context. And then you can see that the local context, we actually perform fairly well in that number. Our two immediate neighbors have much lower percentages. And a lot of kids who are in other places for their education versus, we're actually in sort of a grouping with Weymouth and Situate and Norwell in terms of that percentage. So, and our team is digging, we have spreadsheets, we have this listed out, we can get deeper into this data, we can answer more specific questions on it. But this was intended to provide that high-level overview of the data and how our number compares. And so just as we're looking at choice, recognizing that there are parents who are making other choices, and so that's just part of the equation that I wanted to bring into the dialogue tonight. But I'm going to pause on this chart to see if there are any other questions or comments or clarification points around it.
And I told you when we chatted previously about this chart, I don't love this chart because one of the things that it calls out, in my opinion, is that other districts clearly are in district for VOTEC, which is something that Hull's families have been calling for since we declined to be part of that. And unfortunately, it's just not in our budget, and that is why we're not part. Not that we don't love the trades, because we do. And I know that the high school currently has some plans in place, and they're already working toward bringing some trades to us, with our carpentry, boat building, and our business, and then some plans for bringing in some culinary things. So we've got some VOTEC that we're bringing, but when I look at this chart, I see just kids have left their home district for vocational opportunities, and that's why their percentages are down compared to ours. I think it's a picture of opportunity versus what I think we'd like to show. But you all know that I am a huge proponent of school choice. I think it is the best choice for Hull. I defend it at every turn. I'd love to know other people's concerns, and I think as we talk through the benefits and the application process, I think it will alleviate a lot of people's concerns with school choice. I don't personally find this chart to be helpful. Sorry.
It is a good springboard, though, because this is a question that we have collectively been asking for some time now, even before Dr. Juddy was in place, of we really, I think that I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I will anyway. I think that we've been really hungry to understand where are our students going if they are leaving, where are they going and why, and how, because that's going to give us, I think, the opportunity, to Elisa's point, to identify trends, to say like, okay, if we're losing any number of students to VOTEC programs, that's an opportunity, a gap that we can close. What we don't know in here, there's room to dig in deeper to say, of the students who go to, I don't know, in-state private and parochial, are they going for religious reasons? Are they going for athletic reasons? Right? Like there's still plenty to unpack here, and I would like to use this as a springboard for that conversation to continue, so that we can keep a good eye on our enrollment in that direction. And I think that's what I like about this, is it's a starting point.
We've talked previously, I can't identify exactly when that was, but the idea of sort of maybe a mail-in survey of why did you choose to send your child elsewhere, that sort of feedback. I would love if parents had that opportunity to have the conversation and to speak candidly about their reasons. Because it's never just one reason, I don't think. I think sometimes there's a handful. I'd love to get that data if parents would be willing to share it. But another just point of information I'd like to share is that I first became aware of school choice from another family who told me about it, and they were a very high-performing, sort of invested family. And one fear that I've heard spouted was that we would be getting people who were maybe, suspended, and they're just looking for another opportunity, and they've left their home school for some awful reason. Those aren't the kids whose families are supporting them and looking for school choice. They're high achievers who are looking around to see what better options they might have than their zip code provides. And Hull, to the point of the map that is the one I brought to attention, our district will be a green flag on that map. I looked at their list and I saw where we fall, and it's solidly green, and what better advertisement than that? Hull is a great choice.
So is that a great segue to talk about where I would love to hear a little bit more about what you learned, because to me, your conversations with those two superintendents are going to be, I'm really curious what
I think
they had to
helpful.
say.
So I'm going to close this chart, but ask questions about this and challenge us to get back to you with more of the information. I mean, once we take this and break it down to who the students are, and we know that there are many, many families who have never been engaged in the Hull Public Schools. They have made that choice from early on, and so we can get into some of that data as we move forward. But
I would love to follow up on Eliza's request. If we can take some steps to start to gather that information, that would be fantastic.
I would like to see like a trailing 10 years, trailing 15 years of what the population was, what the drop-off was, so we could track it. So in the data world, if you were to do that predictive modeling, you would have that 10-year data, and then you'd be like, okay, we have the class of the 12th graders in this coming year, there are 60 of them. What is the chance that one of them or 5 of them are going to leave? And then we can proactively manage them, reach out to the parents, because this actually tells me a lot. And it tells me from one perspective we're doing very well at keeping the kids that we have, but there's socioeconomic factors in here. I can tell by reading through the lines between Hingham and Cohasset. Rich kids, rich families, guess what? The local education's not good enough, and they're sending them to BC High or some other fancy place. Whereas we're losing 10%. Are they leaving? Can't even speak anymore. Are they leaving for the same reasons, because of sport, or is it because they're afraid of something? But I think if we can do that trailing 10-year, then we can do that predictive modeling. Then we can say, what are the chances any of these kids are going to leave, and how do we aggressively get ahead of that? You know what I mean?
Yep.
absolutely, yeah.
And you brought up BC High just as an example, and I think NDA is the same. I mean, it's religious education, and so some families are leaving for that reason, and there's nothing we can do about that,
Right.
if that isn't their reason.
Yeah, but to your point, there's lots of reasons why, and Brendan, I like that push. So let's make that one of the things that we're really thinking about. And now let's shift into school choice, if that's.
So I'm going to walk through this again so that there's backstory to it. So the first question is about the idea that if a student chooses to come here who has an IEP, and even a more heavily involved IEP, who has the financial responsibility for that? What I've been assured by my colleagues is that the Hull Public Schools becomes the provider of the educational programming, but the financial cost of that is still borne by the district where they reside. So And again, we're not in it, so the nuances of, there's an increment cost that gets assessed for the individual student, and even if they're in an expensive out-of-district placement, it will be the resident district that will end up covering that cost. So that was very reassuring, because we weren't 100% clear. Reading the DESE document, it's a little bit vague, it wasn't clear, but they have all talked about the fact that they will provide the services, and then they keep track of the staff hours and bill back. And there's some spreadsheets that have been shared that sort of show this accounting piece in terms of how they come after that. So the big worry of the $100,000 out-of-district placement becoming Hull's responsibility was answered by the districts, that that's not something that we need to fear. So that was helpful to hear. The second question was about behavior issues, and to Elisa's point, both superintendents confirm that there's either no difference, kids are kids, or in some cases the choice students are actually slightly better behaved. And they attribute that to well-engaged families, that, you know, when a family chooses to do this, they're committing to travel, they're committing to the transportation piece. So now parent meetings are that much further from home, athletic events are that much further from home, so you have a more engaged family, and as a result, the need to stay well disciplined at school is heightened, and they're just not seeing a big difference in that. So again, I think there's always a fear that the kid who has been suspended somewhere or really having a hard time, well, then forget this, I'm just going to go there, and now it would be go to Hull. The data bears out that that's not the case in the long run. It doesn't mean that there won't occasionally be a kid, just like there is occasionally a kid from town who drives you nuts. It doesn't mean that that won't happen also with a student who chooses to be here. But the reality is that they have not seen a huge swing in that.
There's also an application deadline, so they can't just come mid-year if that's not the deadline that we've set in advance. So there's not a knee-jerk reaction of my kid got into a fight and so now we're gonna go to Hull. They have to plan in advance. They can come at the next school year if they'd like to, but so.
That's a really good point. This isn't a drop-in, drop-out kind of scenario. This is make a commitment to where they want to be educated. The third,
Sorry.
go ahead.
And it has been confirmed that the transportation expense falls on, or the parent or the family is responsible for that cost?
100%. If a child has transportation in their IEP, then that is something that would be paid by the resident district, because it's their responsibility to get that child to school.
Any student that comes here, regardless of the services that they need?
An IEP student with transportation in the IEP, the resident district would provide, just as we do if we're sending somebody to a collaborative. But a non-IEP student, it's the parent responsibility to get them.
That was, okay,
there.
thank you for clarifying.
I think we would have to also clarify, we're kind of in a unique spot with our schools kind of out at the end of the peninsula, so, you know, if there was like a common bus stop just inside town, I don't know, we'd have to talk about that, but causing Diane stress as I say that, I think, but our high school buses certainly are not overflowing, so we could probably find a way to not have them come all the way out by, you know, being picked up somewhere, but we can figure that out.
We have a city bus now, and we also have the ferry, which is conveniently located outside the store.
Yeah, could be any closer.
Which, I mean, would not help for open elementary seats per se, because, you know, little second graders maybe not gonna hoof it from here to the Jacobs, but,
And oddly, high schoolers like the 714, so they ride it pretty frequently, so.
yeah, I see them all the time.
I think they would figure this out.
I think you're saying that we could look into the fact that they could start at a bus stop, so their parent could bring them to our regular school bus stop.
Again, with planning, if we knew
Potentially.
that and we could make sure that there were seats on the bus, we're flexible to that.
One of the things that I really like about our small school district is we can if there's a problem identified, we can work together to figure out a creative solution. You know, we don't have to put up barriers to solutions.
The third item on here is about the best way to budget, and so what other districts cautioned is that if the revenue for choice students is really used to balance the budget, it can be one of these scenarios of sort of kicking the can down the road. Now, understand something, and Diana's corrected me 50 times on this, the revenue goes to the town. So we have to work with our town partners on, are there ways that we can figure out how to make any additional revenue like this somehow available or helping to offset. We're not sure about this. This is early on in infancy, but you know, if it's just revenue and then that's, you know, simply used to fund our budget, you could end up in a scenario where if choice students stop coming, or, you know, now, you know, and we're dependent on that revenue, it could be a problem, right? So I just want to highlight that. Other districts are looking at way more revenue than we're currently talking about also, but if this is successful and we get the programming enhanced so that more students are coming, we could also be seeing large revenue sources down the road. So I just want to paint that picture now.
I'm curious if any of your staff have worked in, you know, a district that previously has done this and what their feedback was. I see Dr. Shaw in the corner and plenty of teachers in front of me. Have any of you worked in, like, seen this done well before or done it all?
So I don't believe anybody's been in a choice district based on the conversations that we had. So we're relying on dialogue with others, but I'll stand corrected if anybody has had experience with it.
So I just want to narrow in a little bit on what you were just saying to make sure that I understand and that the committee understands. This conversation about the funding comes from, what district did you say it was? Avon?
Avon and
Avon.
No, this was specifically Norton.
Norton, where they're 10% of their fund is their students are coming from.
It's $1.6 million in their case.
So they have a
that is
huge
revenue.
amount of money that they're cautioning us, don't roll that into your general operating funds because you don't want to become reliant on that. And so I think that's a really important distinction. It helped me think about how we would put that money and how we could use that money intentionally.
rainy day kind of.
Well, or it could be used for one-offs, like we need an updated internet system.
100%.
Or we need more Chromebooks to be purchased for some reason, you
100%.
know,
Better
like
athletics
one-offs.
program.
With the caveat that ultimately the check is to the town of Hull.
Yes,
And
so can you, so it's not earmarked for the public schools, the town of Hull gets to put in their coffer and then maybe they give it to us?
So it's, I don't know if you ever heard the municipal cherry sheet.
Nope.
So all like state funding, you get, each town in Massachusetts, this is gonna be a quick version, so
Thanks,
gets
Diane.
assessments and revenues.
Okay.
And they balance out and you end up getting more money, and that's what they send you. So our Chapter 70 money, which is earmarked for schools, school choice is part of that. Also, though, there's assessments for charter school, like any kid that goes to the charter school, there's a charge to the town for that, for those students. So the town has never balanced, like, taken away our budget based on more or less kids going to charter school or going to, like, virtual schools in the state are considered choice schools. So we do have a couple that go to a virtual school. So they've never adjusted our budget for those students. So I don't think it's just a foregone conclusion that they fund our budget well above net school spending, which is like the mandated amount that they have to fund our budget. So it's not a foregone conclusion that every dollar that comes in for school choice would be extra money in our budget. They're already funding us well above what they need to.
So the town could choose to use those additional funds for whatever they choose to and not give it to the
Exactly.
school
We
department.
just haven't had that conversation.
But it bolsters your business case for when you go for an ask for whatever is in your budget. Because we know that we're handing back X amount per year.
Correct.
And to say that we now have students arriving with revenue following, and so, you know, it's
think
just
it's a great
part of the
story to tell.
equation for them to think about, right?
Is there the ability to work a relationship out with, or an agreement out with the town that demands that we get the full amount?
I'm not saying that we can't, I'm just saying we haven't had that conversation, so I
Sure.
don't wanna start spending money
Right,
Before
that
yeah.
we haven't
don't
even
have to-
talked
COVID
about.
dollars.
For the record, we don't even have applicants yet, so.
Correct.
Yeah, to be clear, we have zero revenue, right, at this point, but, you know, I put in here into a fund, and that's where Diane cautioned, like, it's really not, it's not like the check is written to the school department, and so we can deposit it into a school department account. It's written to the town, it's all relative to the cherry sheet, which is kind of a check and balance of money flow. But in the end, the town is supporting us well. We just don't want to get to a point where we depend on that revenue. And then, you know, let's say there's a change in the government and they suddenly just halt this.
Right.
And now what do we do when that happens? And, you know, you're in a situation where with 80% of our budget being personnel,
Which, I'd love for you to share the airplane analogy,
We're
because.
getting there in a second,
you are-
but
okay, because
I just think this is,
I want to say that is that, when you just said we don't want to depend on the money, because then we would be sort of with these students till they graduate if they choose to stay and have to pay for that. So
that's
your
not what
your
we're saying.
airplane
We're not
analogy.
saying, we're not saying we're gonna expand, what I think he's saying in that moment, correct me if I'm wrong, is we don't want to just start to assume we have that revenue from students every year and start to build programming on those,
Sure.
on that revenue, because we don't know what, now, however, if something comes up and we needed, you know, I don't know, the internet example or the intercom example or whatever it is, I do think that, you know, obviously we would have a clear agreement with the town ahead of time, and I, for one, you know, we have a fantastic relationship with the town,
Fabulous,
and
yeah.
I have no reason to think that they wouldn't be completely supportive of what we would need to do. And also, in that regard, I mean, I don't know, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I also like this idea of like the mutual benefit of the town and the schools. Like there is some advantage to that as well. But we will get to the airplane, but go ahead.
I just had a question. If we are fronting the cost, so if the school is fronting the cost for whatever it was, $5,000, and then there's a reimbursement, that's not coming back to the school, that is just going right to the town.
I don't think we're fronting any cost.
well, if we're.
Well, what I read on the FAQs was that we pay for the cost and then we get reimbursed by the sending community.
Right, so if we have say, I'll use the special needs example, a student comes to us and is receiving services from speech, language, OT, whatever, we're billing for all that, we'll get reimbursed later, but we already have those personnel in place, and, you know,
But I guess I'm asking about the reimbursement piece, so
It-
that
it
the
will come
reimbursement goes back
la-
to the school.
it will come later in terms of the expenses there and the
I
reimbursement.
don't know how the reimbursement works. I was strictly talking the original 5,000, like, that's a standard payment for school choice per student.
But it is a reimbursement to come later. We have to provide the service up front, and then the sending district will reimburse for that. It's not a pay-as-you-go, right? So it's a reimbursement.
But a lot of what we do is a reimbursement. I mean, that's,
I know, but I guess that's where I'm confused, because is the town receiving the reimbursement, or is the school receiving the reimbursement?
like,
How does
we're
it
not
balance?
front-loading the money and then giving it, the
Yeah, like,
reimbursement to
how
the
are
town,
we,
no.
how is
I
this
see.
coming out of the
Typically,
till?
if it's an expense of ours that we're being reimbursed for,
Okay,
we would get
But
the
isn't it the same
reimbursement.
thing? Like
But
the
it's really
town
not.
pays us the budget and then they get reimbursed if a child comes here, it's coming from the same,
Mm.
no?
No, because,
We get our budget from the town, they pay.
we get our budget from the town,
So
yep.
we bring a child in and they don't give it back to us to give it to the town?
But I think the distinction is, a regular education student, we're talking reimbursement for incremental costs above and beyond, you know,
Like a typical cost.
yeah.
yeah, like the services we provide and all that stuff that
Like,
we're already
the
doing.
baseline, just come to school. This is.
How might we think about this? Cue your analogy.
Let's hear about the
Well,
airplane.
so the analogy, and this came from, again, the Superintendent Norton, who, the way they have chosen to look at this is that they are they're an airline and they are going places. And if there are empty seats that are on that airline, and I would say that we're an airline going places also, and we do have empty seats. You know, some of the classes at the high school, there are plenty of empty seats. And so if we can find a way to sell those seats even at a discount, so instead of thinking about the cost of $30,000 to educate a child, we're gonna pay the $30,000, just as that plane is flying. You know, it's, the cost of operating that plane is fixed. But if you can then sell those seats even at a discount, that's all additional revenue that you're able to benefit from. So again, it gets caught up in this revenue question of where does the money go? But the point is, we have empty seats that are on our plane.
So the
And
question becomes, at what point, what's the tipping point, right? At what point are those seats no longer, is it no longer a benefit to sell them at a, right?
And the way that sort of approaching that tipping point, we already have our, in the case of Hull, we think often in terms of threes. So we have 3 classes, and we know how many students based on our class size policy we can put into those seats. Then you have the practical number, which is based upon the actual student profile. How many students do you want to put into those seats, right? So there are needs that would cause that number to maybe be a little bit lower than a class size policy, especially when you see class size policies of 30 students in a classroom. We don't have 30 students in our classrooms, and so we don't desire to have 30. We could, but we don't desire that. So there's that number that sort of comes down. And then you look at individual classes. There could be higher needs in one class based upon behaviors, based upon educational needs. So what our goal is to figure out that number that we can accommodate, and then to back off that by a percentage or two to leave space for a move-in. Because what we don't want to do is fill the capacity and then suddenly have 3 students move in and now we're over capacity. So the task for us going forward is to be mindful of those numbers. We're always projecting, like, what do we see happening, and then that's based upon years worth of, we do it on a 3-year average in terms of how we make those predictions, and then to select seats based upon the capacity that we're comfortable with, so that if students did move in, we still have room for that to happen. So I'm not giving you hard numbers here because they're not hard numbers. They are based upon our administrators, our knowledge of the classes, and knowing where the students are. Like, we're constantly going to be monitoring that to say, this is what we envision. And the key thing, and I think it was Lisa who hit on this, that once we accept a student, they're with us the whole time, right? So they are now a Hull kid. They are now part of our school community. They have the right and the ability to continue that education through. So it's a very important choice that we set that up correctly and we get the right number of students into each grade level. So that was part of the messaging too, is that we want to make sure that Hull families understand that we never want to be in a position of saying, but that's not a Hull kid. No, they're a Hull high school student, they're a Hull kid. If they're a Jacobs student, they're a Hull kid. And so we have to extend that same way to think about to every student who is attending our schools. And with the families, we really want to say that, you know, it's important that they understand what the expectations are for their child, for the parent, so that we can make sure that they've made this choice with eyes wide open as to who we are and why they're choosing to come here. So it's kind of a two-way street of that whole communication piece going forward. So then I had the tipping point on finances. It's really not so much finances, it's really about numbers in classes to make sure that we don't overwhelm the system. The last point that's on here, before I get to the numbers, is a transition plan for all new students. So I think we do a pretty good job of welcoming new students in, but I think it's also something we can continue to examine. So when a new student arrives mid-year or at the start of the year, just making sure that, you know, the pluses and minuses to a small community and 60 students who have been together for a while is it can be hard for somebody new to come in. And so, you know, continuing to refine what that looks like when somebody new arrives and how they're embraced and welcomed into the school community will be part of the ongoing dialogue. And it'll be heightened by choice, because we're putting out there that we're welcoming And so, how do we put our money where our mouth is, if you would?
To be clear, though, we wouldn't, to Elisa's point early on, the application window would be at the beginning of the school year. This isn't a rolling, ongoing enrollment, so there is no middle of the year, okay, so this is, when you say we wanna be welcoming to kids who come in the middle of the year, that's just a family that moves into
Right.
Hull, okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
But also, I think Hull sometimes has a habit of presuming that everybody knows what's to come in the years to, you know, what the traditions of this town are, and I find myself behind the 8 ball all the time with not knowing what was supposed to happen. And so it's good, even for kids who have lived here a long time, to just remind them, here are our traditions and expectations, and here's what's to come next. Highlighting how, you know, the Jacobs Middle School is different from the elementary school, even though there are kids who have been in that building, not to presume that everybody knows. I think we could certainly bolster our language introducing transitions.
Do you have examples?
Yeah, I do. So, when my oldest went to the middle school, when it was actually at the middle school, we had homeschooled for a year because it was COVID, and then she came back, and everybody just presumed she knew where all the classrooms were. Well, she didn't, because she hadn't been there before. So that's like an easy thing that a tour could have alleviated, and I didn't think to ask for it, and it wasn't offered. So things like that are easy to do with no extra
Oh,
cost.
Courtney, there are so many traditions that are a part of this
I have-
town's DNA.
I've got
that
another
as
one.
an outsider,
Yeah.
trying to help,
Millions.
like, all the senior things that happen, like, you want an example? I have never heard of, and I knew not what a ball drop was.
I still
until,
don't.
like, yeah, right, like, that's not, like, that was,
I honestly don't, I'm from here, I don't know what you're talking about.
I guess the fire trucks drop balls and
Yeah, it's
like
it's a fundraiser.
it's a fundraiser thing, but only to say, like, that was like, I don't know, yes, there's just a ton of things that happen
So here's
in this
another
town.
example. The 8th grade dance happened recently, and we took pictures at the gazebo, because that's what we do. But I asked the woman who designed that invitation to call it out, that we go to the gazebo first, and to tell people that's where to meet, and that we would then relocate to the dance location, which was not at the gazebo. So things like that, if you pay attention long enough, you start to catch on. But it's nice if we just spell it out for people who aren't paying attention or just moved here. Because I am definitely in that group of, I don't know, I just don't know some things. So,
Okay.
we'll make a
Any
list. We'll sit
questions
around,
about-
we'll make a list one day.
I'm sure I don't know
No, I do.
90% of that list, so.
It comes down to communication at the end of the day. You can never over communicate. I guess, Mike, if I was a member of the public, and I am, and I think about, you know, maybe putting myself in their shoes around, oh, well, you know, we don't want the wrong types of people here in Hull. How far is that governance layer that we can kind of instill upon this process?
So really, the application and acceptance process is supposed to be blind to that, so, you know, we're not allowed to say, submit your discipline record from another school. I'm also a big believer that sometimes a kid just needs a clean slate and a fresh start somewhere. You know, it's possible that some of those behaviors could be manifesting from years of being with the same kids. And so, if we can provide that opportunity for a student, and they come here and they know what our expectations are, and we onboard them, you know, maybe that's actually, I don't wanna judge the book by the cover, right? So it's like an opportunity to kinda have that fresh start with us. And I think that if behaviors do manifest itself, you know, one of the superintendents talked about a student who knew what all the expectations were, and then still was absent a lot, hit the truancy level. And it's like, you're truant, and are you sure you made the right choice in coming to our school? Because you're not getting here, and you knew that that meant you had to get driven here. You knew that meant a start time that was much earlier, whatever. And so you have to have those frank dialogues with families, and that family, I guess, chose to return back to the resident district because they realized it wasn't what they thought they were getting into. So again, you have to have that frank dialogue.
Last question, and comment first. I was telling a colleague or business guy in Charlestown that, you know, Hull is thinking about this and was voting it in. And he said, what are you talking about? He said, Hingham already actively advertised in Charlestown to get kids from Charlestown, Boston into Hingham schools, which I thought was was quite telling. And I guess the data backs it up now, which I hadn't thought about before. I forget my question, so we'll move
I
on.
just want to be really, like, I want to be very careful though, like, Mike, your example is a good one. Like, yes, there are kids that will do better in a different environment, but that's not the profile of the typical student who is going to
It's
come
not.
here. And that's not the purpose of this at all. Because a student who, as a parent, I know that I need to be thinking, if I'm going to make a change of my child's school, that's a process that starts right in the spring before I'm going to make any sort of change. And I'm visiting the school and I'm understanding and I'm hearing firsthand from what I'm hearing is the orientation includes, these are our school rules, these are our school times. This is, we are laying out the expectations. And then I'm making the commitment to getting my child to the place where I think they're going to be the most successful. That's my end as a parent. And then I just also want to highlight as well, all of our students are always expected to behave up to Pirate Pride. Is that the right thing? Sure. Right? Like, we have very clear behavior expectations, and no student, whether they live in the village or they live in Weymouth, is going to have any different expectations. There is a discipline process that is in place that our teachers are really excellent at managing. That's what they're trained to do, is they are trained to design classroom management strategies so that everyone is successful regardless of where they live. And I think that that's just an important note. It's not, there's no one that's gonna just get a free-for-all because they don't live here and they're gonna, they're gonna be, so. Do you wanna share these numbers?
So the last part is where we are with recommending seats that we foresee as being available. So this is kind of a twofold approach. So the first grade, we're recommending 3 students with a projected enrollment of 52, so that would bring us to 55. And again, that's in first grade.
Not in kindergarten.
Not in kindergarten, because kindergarten, that number is a little bit more fluid at this point. So the good news is it's higher than it had been. We were predicting 29. I think Principal Shaw said that we're up to 36. So that number is coming up a little bit. So it's just too unpredictable, the kindergarten number at this point.
Just
And
wanted
then
to
the
also
second-
call out that we're not giving away our free kindergarten.
Not giving away our free kindergarten.
Saying that out loud.
Say it again.
We're not giving away our free kindergarten to people who would come for free kindergarten for 1 year and then abandon us. Like, that's.
A legitimate concern, but yes, so we wanna save this.
And then the second number that we feel comfortable with at the Jacobs is taking 5 students into the second grade class. That's a small second grade class. So 34 is the current number, 5 more students in second grade. It would be manageable. So that's the recommendation there. And we also think that as much as I appreciate all the spirit of a kid getting on the ferry or a kid getting on the 714, that's not a first or second grader. And I just want to say that out loud, like, that's probably not the case, other than if you had a parent who was on their way to the ferry and could drop a child off, that may have a different look to it, but it's not the child coming across on the ferry. And then at the high school, where we do envision that it's really all of those opportunities on how a student could arrive here, by boat, by bus, by car, that 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade, we believe that 5 students in each would be doable. You see where the enrollment numbers are. That's a total of 20 additional students at the high school, which is, I think our enrollment projection drop for next year, based upon the number, we're looking to have about 15 fewer students in the building. So we're pretty confident that absorbing 20 back up, it would not surpass our number from last year. So we were at 277 last year. We came in at 263 this year. We're projected to be 248 next year. So 20 students are not a deal breaker, because that enrollment is declining. So those are the numbers that we're coming forward with and recommending.
Do we know what the ideal state would be? Like, what a robust, full school? Like, I assume it's when, I'm looking at you, Courtney, when you graduated or somebody, what would it be? Like, would it full, because in Ireland where I grew up, my high school class was 96, I think, or 102. I think it was, we started off with 96 and then we finished off, like people came and joined.
In the class?
Yeah, like, or grade.
In the grade?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the ideal number is, to be honest. I can just tell you, walking around the high school, visiting classes, there are empty seats that are available. And, to me, there's not gonna be an incremental cost that goes with that. In many cases, talking with Ms. Capadonna today, there are orders that we make for online seats and so forth, and we have to make some adjustments. But those are good problems to have. When our AP course goes from 10 students to 13, and we have to buy buy 3 additional textbooks, that's a good problem to have at this point. So,
And
How do-
Bri-
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say real quick, and then I want to, Brendan, to answer your question as well, like just in case it didn't translate perfectly. These are the numbers of students that we feel we can accept
Right.
without adding teachers without additional cost.
Gotcha.
Without adding teachers. That's the key number that Mike was looking at. I'm sorry, Courtney.
And no, that's a perfect spin-off to my question, or comment. So, question is how did we come up with these numbers by grade? And who was involved in those conversations? So, I would imagine that to come up with these numbers, you met with teachers and your leadership team and kind of went over all of that just to get to these numbers?
So we looked at the enrollment projection chart, so I shared that with you back in October. I showed where the projections had fallen. I probably should have linked that, to be honest, because that's an ongoing document. And then I met with the principals, so I did not go to teachers. I met with principals to say, here's what we're seeing with the projection, and how do you feel about this number? I'm the one who proposed the numbers, and both Kyle got back to me at first and second grade that he agreed with those, and Rob actually, I originally had a different proposal, and Rob added to my proposal. So again, based on his comfort level with the classes at the high school.
It sounds like you also confirmed with Ms. Capadonna about resources, and you mentioned to me as well, you looked at the negotiated contract agreement
And the class size is there.
for class sizes.
And I had a conversation, I will say, Ms. Weber and Ms. Jones, we had a dialogue about, like, the 30 students in a class, is that even practical in this day and age? That's a number that's been held over for a long period of time, but that's a number that's in many class size guidelines. 30, but you don't walk into any classes with 30. So the fact that we have paid attention to what individual student needs are and we make those adjustments, I think tells part of the story. Not to anchor on a policy number that really is not realistic.
And thank you for that clarification. And so one last question around the numbers for me is, so adding these 5 to each of these grades, 8th through 11th in the high school, what would that roughly bring a classroom size to? We think like 18? Is that the 18? What is the average today? And I know it varies,
Well,
right?
so that's really hard to predict too, because when you take 5 students and you put them into the master's schedule, it's probably gonna, there could be
One or two.
one class that benefits from a
Okay.
couple, and many are gonna be one here, one there, and one somewhere else, so it's really hard to say.
Yeah, but I think
We're not
that's-
overwhelming and stressing the system.
Right, so I think that is, so like looking at the 5, and really only adding 1 or 2 to a classroom is not overwhelming, I wouldn't think, considering our classroom sizes are pretty low today, right?
Right.
And we can adjust that over time if we were happy with the
Every
program,
year.
the progress.
Oh,
and-
absolutely. We can't turn around to somebody and say, we don't have seats for you any longer. That, we own that student once they come in.
Yeah.
But a year out, and the year after that, and the year after that, how we're targeting those seats and where they are, we have that ability.
One of the many things that makes Hull special is our class sizes, and these numbers don't change that significantly.
That was my point.
Yeah,
Right.
and Hull is like a small numbers private school. The teachers get to know the students get to know the teachers. It's, they are available for help after hours. Listen, I don't know.
I lied, I have one more question. So, for the first and second grade, so first grade we're saying 3 students, how many classrooms are in first grade?
So for next year, let me pull up the chart. Again, this is a projection
Sure.
for first grade. So we are projecting 50 students. I think that says 52 though.
Yeah,
Good job.
it must have gone up
So,
one.
And so that's 3 teachers, and your class size guideline says that we should be at 22. And the actual number with 50 is 16.7 or 17 students, so we're well under the 22. So putting 5 additional students spread across 3 classrooms is gonna have, I'm doing mental math here, but it's 3 18s and 2 19, or, no, it's 1 18 and 2 19s. Hardly, again, we're still well under that 22 guideline.
Should we open it up to the?
In just a
Yeah, I
second,
think
Lily has
unfortunately,
it.
he left. I
Sorry,
hope he-
I've been waiting.
Sorry, Lynn.
Just to ask a question. I was one of the board members that did not want to move forward just because I didn't feel like we had enough information. I like what this is doing. I like what it could do for our schools. My hesitation still is this too bold? Are we trying to open this up to too many students at one time in too many grades? Is this something we should see where we land in a year and then reassess and then open it back up, and extend it to more students? That's just my hesitation on it. I like what this could do for our schools, but I am a little concerned about what if we did fill all of these spots, which would be great, but at the same time, that's just money out, and I know that there's reimbursements and communication and all that stuff, but is this just too bold to be putting it out for this many grades? I know it's a low number, but
I want to clarify though, it's not money out, right? It's not costing us anything. That's like what with
okay,
the
so
airline
money
and-
aside then, right?
Right, the
We know nothing
risk.
about this program.
What if all the condos that are being built were all filled with families with children and we got 26 new kids? We would celebrate that, right?
Of course.
So it's not different.
I suppose. I think it
Kids
is a
are
little,
kids.
I think it is a little different, based on the fact that we have to vote on it every year. So I'm just trying to have the dialogue. There's a lot of questions out there, and we were a little divided on the choice, so I think that it's healthy to have the communication and for me to voice my concerns.
Yeah, no,
I agree.
and Lily, I'll back you up there, because I was the other school committee member who voted against it. Again, not because I'm against it, I'm all for it, I'm not somebody who's gonna make a very quick decision based off of little data. I appreciate, this is much more data presented here, which is great, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I think Lily has a fair call out. We were talking about, not even opening it up to the Jacob School, at first, and now potentially opening it up in majority of the grades. So, to your point, yeah, that would be great if, all the condos were filled with families. And then, yes, you're right, I do disagree a little bit on, there is a difference. I think that if a family is coming here and moving here, then I think they should have the priority to be here. That's my take. But I think that, if that were to happen and we were to add all these students, I don't know, would the district be overwhelmed?
I think that was exactly the numbers that Mike just shared, and so to repeat them, even if, which I don't believe there's any world where this would all get filled, but even if it was, there is still plenty of cushion for additional students. I mean, this is not putting kids who live in Hull at any risk of not having a spot in a small still well below average classroom regardless. Like that buffer of 16 kids going, like this makes it 16.7 kids. That's still really low. So even if you ended up getting another 5 kids that just moved into the condos per grade level, you'd still only end up at, what, 21? I mean, that's still small.
And this number, these seats will change each year based on our availability. This is not a binding number for all years going forward. So that's important to keep in mind too, that, you know, we'll get a few kids maybe next year, and then these numbers will adjust to accommodate that and make sure that there's still plenty of open seats on the airplane that we've already paid for, that's already flying, so that these enrollment numbers will be adjusted
When is
every
the
year.
application deadline? And what is the timeline of the application?
So that hasn't been set yet. We don't even have the application done. But
Is it up to us to determine those dates?
it's up to us. And what other supers said to me is you're really late to the game. And so making this choice now, I agree. There's 28 seats that are being recommended here. We're probably gonna at best see a few. It's just, but now we're dipping our toe in. We're getting our word out about Hull. We're letting others know. I just want to address too, the way this played in the media sounded like school committee against the superintendent. It sounded very adversarial, and I don't think it was adversarial. My hesitancy coming in was we haven't given this the level of planning and thought that provided comfort, and we were sort of pushed into the deep end by 3 members of the school committee, and it's like, so how are we going to do this? And I believe we can do this. I think we can absolutely welcome and embrace and make this work out, because I really think the numbers are going to be very small in the first year. The strategic planning initiative, which is going very well, I think that is going to put forth some really clear programmatic pieces for us as a district that will be helpful to this down the road. So ooching into it this year with a few students will allow us to iron out those kinks. But I'll also point out that it was in local press across the South Shore, and to my knowledge, we've received 0 reach outs. Nobody's called us to say, where's the application, how do we do that? And I'm just saying that out loud because it's not like the phone was ringing off the hook because we said that we became part of school choice. So
In my brief research, the latest date I saw was June 15th for applications for the following school year. But most school districts seem to follow what the private schools do, which is like December applications due, and then the notifications come out in spring, is kind of the trend that I saw. And I would propose that for 1 year only, we have a late summer application, and that in years following, that we conform with the majority of school choice, which is a spring deadline.
I don't want to gloss over Lily's question, because what I hear Lily expressing are these numbers too aggressive? Is this too bold for a first year? Is that right, Lily?
That's exactly right, yeah.
And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about Dr. Shaw's response, because that's where those numbers went up, I think, right?
So I will tell you that the number I had was 8 and 10. I was kind of skirting around 9th, and I didn't get to 11.
Grade level, not
Grade
number of
level.
kids.
Yeah,
8th
I'm sorry.
grade and 10th grade. Okay.
Correct. Because the rising 8th graders, they're coming to a new school, having more students join at that point just seemed very natural in my mind. The number is 47, so 5 more just felt like we were in the 50s. Classes of, to Brendan's comment earlier, I worry when we were seeing classes that started with a 6, and now we have some starting with a 3. We were flirting with one starting with a 2. Those were the numbers that I just said, really 60 is doable. We've been doing that. And certainly in the 50s. So when I see a 4, it just 40s, it had me say we can take space there. And one of the things that Dr. Shaw pointed out was that 9th grade is also the year where families are choosing other schools. That's a year where they're saying, you know what, for the next 4 years, this is how we're going to dedicate and the choice that we're going to make. And so when you put the two together, that 56 is a decline over the current 8th grade class. And so, enticing 5 students to choose us at the time that some of the families are choosing somewhere else felt good to him. So that's why that got added. And then 11th grade was sort of I hate to say it, it was a why not? If we're doing this with 8th, 9th, and 10th, I felt like 11th grade was 5 more there also. We didn't touch senior year. We also didn't think people would be coming for senior year. That's, they're settled in, they're finishing up somewhere else. But certainly to round us out with 2 years of commitment, felt like that might make sense. So that's, and I'm speaking, I see Rob sitting back there, but I hope I characterized that conversation correctly, so.
I think we're in a good position, actually, and I hear the trepidation and the, fear and worry about, bringing in too much kids too soon. I totally agree with that, but at the same time, because we're kind of missing the deadline for this year, I feel like we have a year and a bit to get it right, or whatever the time frame is for when we open it, so we can formalize a program, really figure out what those FAQs are, really build that model to say, this is the amount of kids we want to do in first year, or the first time that we, indoctrinate this program, and then start to measure it and talk about what does success look like for us? How do we stay true to ourselves as Hull Public Schools? But also, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not sorry, we need to think about it in a business sense. If I were a teacher in this school, I'd be like, you know what, I want more kids because I want to live here, I want to work here, I don't want to have to go to Quincy or Boston or wherever. And if we really want to, help the kids and the teachers and people and have a school in our town, we have to do something different. The same old recipe is not going to work anymore. People are sick of that bread. We need to give them something different. And I get it, change, I've made a career in change. Everybody hates change, myself included, but we have to try something different. And we have time to plan it properly, go through these questions, concerns, communicate properly with the town, with the teachers, with everybody impacted, and give it a go.
I love change. I like casting a wide net. I just think when we first talked about this, we talked about mostly high school, and it's nothing. I think the Jacob School is a super welcoming space, and it doesn't matter where these kids are coming from. It's just more of, too much at once is what my concern is. So, do we have to vote on this?
Before we get to that, I wonder if there are comments that from the public, if anyone has some thoughts on this. And I don't know how to call one at a time here, but I do need you to come up to the mic and share your name and your address. Or the mic.
I think over
don't know.
there.
Oh, yeah, podium? Okay. Just otherwise the TV can't hear you.
Hi, my name's Domenico Cristaldi, 17 T Street. I just have a question. How many empty seats are there district-wide right now? And my second question to that, of the seats that are being made available, what's the percentage of the seats that we have district-wide? Like, how much stress does that add? It doesn't sound like it's a lot. So I don't know why there's a big hurdle to adding what seems to be like 20 seats to probably 100 empty slots.
Thank you for your question. Yes, thank you. Percentages?
Boy, I don't have it expressed that way. And I think seats at the elementary school are different than seats at the high school. So seats at the elementary, we're well under the class size caps. So I'll give you the numbers next year. In maybe my columns, right?
Can I take a stab at it while you do it? While he's pulling up those exact numbers, just to say, we don't really think in terms of empty seats. We every year make our decisions for staffing based on enrollment and the number of students that are enrolled in that class for that grade level. What we are looking at right now is what is the capacity that the existing infrastructure can handle without us needing to add another class, without us needing to add another, whatever teacher or additional resources. So I think overall, if you say what do we have, about 700 students total? ish. And we're talking about opening it up for a potentially more, what is this, 40, what is this?
28.
28. So that percentage is not very high.
It's
That was my quick math.
It's even
not
way
very
less.
high.
I mean, I'm looking at, I'll use this year's numbers. So kindergarten can have 22, we had 17. First grade 22, we had 17. Second grade 22, we had 16. Third grade 22, we had 15. So my point is there are seats available there where you're assigning children to a classroom for the day, for the most part, with a teacher, right? High school is a little bit trickier because you could have a class that is larger, and you could have a class that is smaller. And so I can just tell you when we do walkthroughs and our whole administrative team goes out on learning walks and there are seats available in classrooms. It's very rare to find a classroom that is filled to capacity. So there is capacity that we can take these students on. So thank you for the question.
Somebody else want to come to the, come to the mic?
I'd like to just thank all the people who had questions for coming out and asking them. So,
Dr. Jetty, School Committee, Principal Shaw, David Irwin. I have a few questions about the school choice. When the student opts to come here and he doesn't, after the first semester, he opts out, is that prorated?
If a student comes and then withdraws?
Yes.
So they would have to withdraw to go to school somewhere else. And then I think on that cherry sheet that that Ms. Sandy is referencing, there would be, that's where the correction would be. So they're gonna show up as no longer in Hull, now in another place, and they'll make that proration at the state level.
I don't know if you addressed this, but I don't know how far they can come from what towns, but who's responsible for the transportation to get the student here?
Yeah, so it's 100% on the families. I'll give you an example. The Cape is pretty much all school choice, and so kids are choosing which high school they want to go to on the Cape. It's all open enrollment down there, and so my example is coming from Sturgis, which is a charter school, but they talked about students who are driving an hour to get to their school. So families make that commitment. And again, if you're leaving early enough to drive an hour and then you're doing after-school activities and driving that same hour back, that's 2 hours a day on the road. So it's a huge commitment for the families. I also, I mean, with all due respect, if I was trying to get to BC High, I think I'm looking at an hour, even though it's right there, right? The crow flies, it'll tell you that it's relatively quick, but I think they're looking at trains and other ways that they are, but it still is a commitment to make all that happen.
But to answer the
in
question, the
travel.
responsibility of transportation is on the parents.
And as far as taking the money, the money follows the student. They can only go to a public school, is that correct? Not to a private school?
can I answer that? Just, may I, please?
Yeah, I don't.
School choice has always been open for Hull kids. They have always been able to leave. It has nothing to do with keeping Hull kids in our town. It has to do with welcoming non-Hull kids to our town. So it's not opening the doors that weren't already open. Does that make sense, the distinction?
Yeah.
So,
I think he's asking about the financial.
And
so,
Oh, but I was asking about, can
Yeah.
they go to a private school
Right.
and take the money with them?
no,
Cost to educate a
so,
child?
but you're talking about Hull kids leaving to go
Yes.
to that's not what school choice is.
Oh, okay.
School
all right.
choice is,
Didn't understand.
school choice has always been open to Hull kids to leave. A Hull kid can apply to go to any open school that has school choice. They can go anywhere they want, and it's always been that way. Our voting for school choice only allows kids to apply to come to our school. So it's only inviting kids in. It's not telling kids they can leave. They've always been able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, but that,
no, and if I can just go a little bit further as well. So this is not a voucher system where somebody's taking money from one school, right? This is just the state has a per pupil spending and reallocating it to the district that they go to. $5,000 of it.
Another question.
Okay.
What programs does Hull High School have to attract out-of-town students?
That's the piece that is currently being developed. I mean, so why would somebody want to come here? I think that the benefits that we have are smaller class sizes. It's a smaller size school, so a student who is lost in a multi-thousand student school would say, you know what, maybe a smaller school environment is something that I personally would benefit from. And so I'll be more well known by counselors, by teachers, et cetera. So I think that's part of it. Dave, there's no doubt we have to keep working on the programmatic piece. So where Principal Shaw has started to apply for programmatic things like our business program, and our business teacher is here tonight, not to call her out to give a speech by any means, but just, you know, so we're trying to enhance that program and to figure out how to put, you know, to put that sign out in terms of who we are and what we stand for. And are a lot of other things in the works that I don't want to get into this evening, but I believe in 5 years, by the time we're done with this strategic plan, that we'll be able to absolutely answer why we have something that's unique and why students across the South Shore would choose us.
I'd like to build on that in terms of right today. So I chose Hull as a lifelong educator who has worked in global education and visited, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of schools, and spent a lot of time. I chose Hull for my students, or my biological children, because of the small class sizes, but also because of the disproportionate number of opportunities compared to the class sizes. So usually you do not see, in a small school like this, you don't usually see the robotics classes, the athletic offerings, the theater offerings. You don't necessarily see all of those opportunities provided by a small school environment. Also, I think there's, you know, we do have an expanded business program. We're talking about robotics classes. We've got, we offer, say that, esports. We offer so much to students. And here in Hull, so this is my pitch, I guess. I'm gonna give the pitch now, but here in Hull, your students have the opportunity to participate in what they want to participate in. They are not competing with 1,000 other students to get a place on that esports team. And if they are interested in being on esports, there's a spot for them. And that's really a special thing. I would just throw out one more thing in case anyone hasn't looked at this in a few years. Every couple of years, we have our, is it NEASC, is that what it's called? Our NEASC review. And this is a group of people that go all across New England and they visit schools and they have a rubric and they rank schools based on what they see. These are hardened professionals that go to every type of school in New England. And I will never forget having one of them sit here and say the first thing out of their mouth after reviewing our curriculum, watching our teachers teach, meeting our students, seeing the discipline data, seeing how the offices run, the leadership, the overall structure of our district, sitting down in this very room and saying, boldly proclaiming that the first thing he did was call his wife and say, I think we should move to Hull, that this is a gem of a school. So I think there's a lot of things that will attract other schools.
I'll add to that.
Can we pull up the map?
1 sec, I'll add to that, because as a
map.
parent, I went to see the career guidance 2 weeks ago, myself and my wife, and we're like, we want to do the following. We want our son, he's in 8th grade. I want him to do more business. I want to do more analytics. And the amount of offerings they have online, I was blown away and was like, oh, maybe you should look at this. Maybe you can do these pre-college courses. You can do this. And I was like, holy crap, well, look at all this stuff you can do. And it was just phenomenal in terms of all the different varieties. You can get like the time with the teachers, the courses, the business, all the other programs that Dr. Shaw is introducing. But then if you're so inclined, you can do stuff online to like get ahead or like do pre-college courses, that kind of stuff. So it's really up to your own appetite, like what you want to do and what, like, there's no ceiling in my head.
Thank you. So from what I'm hearing, we don't have a no competition clause with any trade schools in the area,
Correct.
correct? So this is my proposal.
Okay.
I'd like to see you start a pilot program in the next 2 to 3 years to attract students here for trades. 2 subjects to begin with could be nursing and electrician, which don't require a lot of tools. It does require Grey's Anatomy, not to show the book, and things of that. I think it would be a great start to something like that. And as my daughter, she went on to become, she graduated from Hull High in the early 90s. She went on to become an ultrasound technician. She's doing very well. And my other daughter was in corporate shoe sales in the corporate division. But now she's had her 3 kids, and she's substitute teaching in Millis.
Amazing.
Doing very well. I've taken up enough of your time, but, I would encourage the students to take the ASVAB test for the military. It's a test that your guidance counselor has and can give you. I think it's either 1 or 2 hours long. I hope that you would even look into it, because the military is not a bad option. They will pay your education. As I talked about, Kaylin Burke, who graduated last year, went to the University of Tampa, went in the ROTC program, and they were so impressed with her and her grades that they're going to pay for her next 3 years. She will graduate with virtually no debt, college debt. She has to give them 4 years of her life, but she's going to graduate right into a job that pays, and she's going to get a $30,000 bonus when she passes her nursing certification program.
Fantastic.
So I love success stories. There's been many here at Hull High School. I've been here 56 years. There was 3,300 kids in this system when I moved into town with 4 schools.
Wow.
And they were having double sessions. So I'm glad that it's getting smaller, but I think you need a little help to beef up the classes. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate the
Thank you,
suggestion.
Rowan.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Both.
Public speaking, but my name is Jessica O'Mara. I live at 12 Winthrop Ave. I have a clarifying question. It's just 2 grades at the Jacobs School with seats, just the first grade and second grade right now, to make a total of 8 seats. So no seats for the middle school, or is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I am wondering about teacher retention at choice schools, because I know I think right off the bat people think very negatively about it. And I think a reason why teachers come and want to be in our community is because of our small class sizes. Especially in this day and age, I come from a family of educators, and I think that schools can, being a teacher is hard, right? And if you're in a classroom with 25 kids, that makes your job a lot harder. And I'm curious to know if there's been any negative feedback from the teachers in the communities that you've talked to that are school choice. Or is that something we can find out?
Well,
Is it a deterrent to make people apply for positions, I guess?
So I have not talked to teachers in the other systems. I did talk to leadership. So I honestly don't know. I know that one of the, going back to the threat question, one of the threats that we have are these small class sizes. That is resulting in more shuffling of grade levels for teachers. And so I do think that with more stability in terms of the number of students that we have in a grade, it certainly can be more reassuring to teachers where their position is going to reside in the future. So there would be less shuffling that would have to occur.
Okay. And I guess my other question is about the application process, which sounds like you guys are still working on. So if we have 5 seats in 8th grade and 5 students apply, do they all automatically get accepted?
So if we offer 5 seats and 5 people apply, they are awarded those seats.
Okay.
So once we say there are 5, but if we have 10 students who apply, then it has to be a random lottery draw. I don't know
Okay.
if you're picking names out of a hat or whatever process we end up with, but it does have to be random. We can't do an evaluation or what have you. It just has to be of those who applied, who will get those seats based upon a random process.
Okay, and the application that they send over is probably just the student's information? That's it, because obviously you can't have anything about IEPs or what the needs of the student are. And I guess if you don't know that information, when does the school find that out?
The same way we do with any student who enrolls new. So if a family moves in, we meet with the family and what are your interests? What's your school experience been like? Tell us more about where you're coming from. It's all dialogue that occurs at that enrollment stage.
Okay.
But it's not pre-enrollment and whether they enroll. We learn that as they enroll.
So, this might sound like a stupid question, but if we are accepting applications late, and I know administration works during the summer, but teachers don't. So, if we've got, what was it, 5 seats in second grade, right? Those teachers are not gonna have any clue what those students' needs are until they actually start school on that first day. So there's no like prep for that, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just like any other student who moves in
New to
at
town.
that point.
Yep.
You know,
Okay.
the administration will, they'll know the current makeups, right? So the teachers are very involved in placing, making those classes up, making sure that they're as strong as possible, matching needs between students and teachers, and then, you know, the administrators will just have to learn about each student, know where the needs are currently, and then match up the best that they can.
Okay, perfect. And I'm guessing that's why the application process is earlier, the deadline's earlier, so that they can do that before classes are decided on. Yeah, okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually have an extension question off of what she was asking. So if I choose to come here and I'm enrolling my student, when do we receive any transcripts from previous schools? And would that not include their IEP information?
Once they're accepted, we'll do all that onboarding.
Yeah, once all that happens, that does
Correct.
follow them.
That's correct.
Something that,
Yep.
okay.
But they're Hull kid when that comes in.
But you know,
Yeah, no, I figured that much. I just
You
didn't.
know, I wonder if though thank you for your questions because it's kind of got me thinking, like, and Lily's point. I don't want to insert. Actually, maybe I shouldn't even say it, but I don't. It's obviously there's a degree to which we insert or influence the numbers that we're actually taking. But I think to say your name again. I'm sorry, Jessica. I think to Jessica's point, like, given and to Lily's point, a feeling that these are maybe aggressive numbers. I wonder if we brought them all down just by one, if that would make it a little bit smoother of a transition, or even given that we don't have the application process in place, like since we are sort of behind the ball, I do think it's a fair notion of like thinking about from a teacher's perspective. You know, you never know exactly who's gonna come into your classroom, but you have a good sense. And I wonder if bringing that down just by one number would give everyone a little bit more confidence going into the summer, given the late application. I don't know. I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into it because I trust the principals explicitly. But Lily, would that matter to you or not so much? Does one kid make
I mean,
any
I
difference?
don't know if this happens in other districts, but I know the teachers communicate with each other. Oh, these are the, this is what you've got coming in. And it's kind of helpful when they know the student. And I know that they don't know all the students because we're going to have new Hullonians come in or a school choice student. And none of that really matters because they'll get to know those students. But I'm looking at the high school numbers and I feel like I'm more comfortable starting in the high school than I would be throwing these numbers into the elementary school, only because I feel like I know the number's low for second grade, but
That's our big.
that's huge, but I also feel like, let's see how the high school works. Those kids can get here via specific alternative transportation, a little easier perhaps. I don't know. It's just, we haven't done it, and I'm open to doing it. I just want us to not be so,
Aren't they a bit aspirational, Mike? Like you don't think you will hit those, right? Year one?
I don't think we're gonna get more than a few
Yeah.
across all the grades. So it is aspirational, mainly because we're so late
Yeah.
to the game. And again, our class sizes are small enough that absorbing these numbers, we're very comfortable
Yeah.
with the numbers, so.
And to that point, then by shrinking the numbers, all we actually do is reduce the likelihood that we would get even that 3. right, like if the combination wasn't, okay, I retract my suggestion.
It's like we have a pilot, to this gentleman's comment, it's like we have a pilot the first year.
Yeah.
With the few kids that we get.
Yeah.
We figure out what we need to tweak, and then second year, we hit it hard.
Yeah.
We know what's going on.
Yeah.
I think it would be insanely unlikely to hit all of these. So
I don't think we're
I
gonna hit
hear
any.
what you're saying, Rory, about the anxiety of going in
I
too
don't think
deep.
so either, but I also don't think if that's the case, then why are we putting it out there so
Because what if
aggressively?
we have three, let's say, because if we have 3 kids that do wanna come, but they all, and we reduce, I don't know, we reduce one of these to two, grade levels to 2, we're gonna exclude someone who, like.
Could come.
Would
And there's
come.
seats and we've got room.
And it's still only 3 people.
Are there any more questions?
Are there
out
any
here?
more questions? Yes, Ms. Jones, would you come to the? I will. Thank you.
It's so cold in here.
I'm frozen. My nose is
Freezing.
like, feels
Is
like
there like a
winter in here.
thermostat?
Shivering over here.
Mara Jones, 63 Bay Street.
Hey,
I am
tweak it.
here hopefully as a parent of a current and former student, but as you all know, I wear many, many hats in the district, so I have information coming from a lot of places, and I'm going to try and contain it. But Lily, first I want to thank you for acknowledging the fact that these numbers are high. I think earlier in the beginning of this discussion, as a committee, you talked about how the numbers that are in the contract are a little bit outdated as far as what class size is, and it's concerning to me that we're considering 22 as anywhere near a target when we've already talked about, when you all talked about the class sizes being outrageous just because that's in the contract. So I do appreciate that acknowledgement. I am wondering if there's been any comparison between the sending communities for the schools that we have been in contact with versus where we anticipate students would be coming to Hull from, because I think that there's possibly a big difference. And I would ask and urge you to keep that in mind as you're making the decisions about how to open seats and how many seats to open. Knowing that there are 34 kids, I believe, well, actually I know for a fact, but, and first going into second grade, adding 5 is actually huge, given the numbers going from 16 or 17 to 20 is a very large percentage jump. So I wanted to thank you personally acknowledging that. That is, it seems like 5, that's a huge percentage, and a big add to the lists that have already been done. And like you said, we don't know what the need will be coming in. So there are some other things that I know only because of my role in the district, so I will hold those for public comment. But I do thank you for your time and having everybody here and having an opportunity to speak with you. But that's my concern as a parent, that I agree, being a little bit too overzealous with the numbers at the Jacob School. But I look forward to hearing how you plan on solving these problems.
Thank you.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you have, so your concern is solely for the Jacob School, not for the high school?
I don't know what the high school numbers look like as much. I do have a very, very big concern about what happens when we don't get the population of students that the 2 communities that Dr. Jetty had a conversation with. I am concerned about overtaxing specific departments and specific systems in our school, that I would anticipate, just knowing what I know about the region, would be choosing to come here based on some wonderful positive reputations that we have as a school district. And I think that those departments are already over or close to being at capacity as to what we're able to accomplish with the current staff that we have in place. Again, I hope you know, you're asking me a question that I know based on my
What
other roles.
communities,
But
what communities are you worried about coming here?
I'm not worried about any communities coming here. What I'm saying is I know that the communities that Dr. Jetty the superintendents that he was able to speak to, I believe that the communities that are sending to those towns are vastly different in their makeup and their need than what we would anticipate receiving students from. I mean, we are thinking that we're going to get students from our local South Shore communities looking for something different, and that's their makeup and the type of school systems that they have are vastly different from the sending communities of the two schools that Dr. Jetty was referencing before, if that makes sense. Vastly different, actually.
I think so. So what are the departments that you think we should be worried about?
I know from, as a parent and just from any social media interaction, that we have a very positive reputation in the realm of special ed. We have small class sizes, as you said. We're able to address the needs of our students very, very well. And as a mom, being in these mom groups that I am in, that is not the case in a lot of our local communities. So my worry would be that those are the families that are going to want to come here, and I have no problem. I mean, I love working with students who have any kind of need that we like to support. I just am very concerned, or would caution, that those numbers being too high would then overtax a system where we only have, for example, 2 classrooms in kindergarten and I know we're not taking kindergarten, but 2 classrooms in 2nd grade. We would have to be really careful about what those numbers look like, and where you don't know, because there are ratios that I know Kristen Ryan could probably give you more specifically what the ratios are as far as inclusion versus beyond that. And that is what I would be worried about at the elementary level, and I think that's why I'm not that I'm not concerned about the high school, and I would defer to high school teachers more for that, but it seems like those numbers get spread out a little bit more because they're not just 2 sections. They can disperse kids a little bit more easily, I believe. Maybe not, because they still only have a limited number of teachers that would support those classrooms. So it's not even a caution, it's just, it is a difference in who's sending to those 2 communities versus who we would hope and expect would be coming here, because we are pretty far out of the way. So I don't know that we're going to get people from much outside our South Shore neighbors. And we do have a pretty good reputation here. So I'm pretty proud when I'm on these groups online at what people have to say about our school and about our special ed department specifically. It's something we should be proud of, but also to just be aware of that could be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that call out, because I feel like, and that's something that we're just not saying out loud, so I appreciate you saying it. And it is something that I think we would definitely need to monitor closely.
And just so that I'm as loud as possible, I love teaching and I love having students in my classroom. I don't care what the need is for students. So I'm not even implying that if that is the case, that it would be a negative thing. Every child has something to offer to our school, and every child has something to offer to our classroom. I don't want that to be out there as misconstrued. I just think it's something that as a committee and as a district, funding and the staff that we have, making sure that we're able to do that with what we already have before we have to add more. That's no problem, whoever comes into our building. I want to be very clear.
And I don't want to put Ms. Ryan on the spot, so I'm just going to.
It was
already
me,
looked at
it
her
was
3
me that
times.
was, I have too.
I know,
I'd love
sorry,
to hear your
Kristen.
thoughts.
No,
I'm
it
going
keeps
to
staring
offer
at
a conversation that we had, and it goes back to the chart that we were talking about earlier, looking at how many students are in collaboratives. So I'll just use an example. Hingham has 11 students in collaboratives based on the state data. We have 10. They're obviously way bigger than we are with their total population. And so how is it that the number is so similar in 2 vastly different districts? And part of it is our ability to build in-house programming differs from a larger place. So, you know, if we're talking, we may have 1 student with a need or 2 students with a need. Building that program in-house is more of a challenge than statistically Hingham is going to have multiple students, so they're better able to build that programming in-house. And so I think the other piece is that we do strive, again, in a smaller classroom or a smaller district environment, striving to be to work with our families to hear what students' needs are, to meet those students' needs. It is easier based upon the ratios that we have, just in terms of where the students are. So those are sort of 2 reactions to why our reputation is a positive one, and how we compare to neighboring districts. So having said all of that, and Christine, you don't have to, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything you want to add or tell me I'm off base on that would be helpful?
No, I think I would just like to share that I'm open to answering any questions and sorting through this process. I think we're at the beginning. Yeah, I can do that. Thank you.
So Kristen Ryan, Director of Student Services for Hull Public Schools. As we explore our next steps for school choice, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that come our way. I'm not prepared to answer any specifics at this point, but I think that all of these questions are good questions to just make sure that any students that we welcome into our community, that we're going to give them the education that they're seeking. And so I think that these conversations are important to have, and the questions are important. So more than happy to answer any questions. I'm just not prepared to answer them on the spot.
Do you think that we're missing, do you think that we're missing anything when we use enrollment and class sizes as sort of the key indicator for how many seats we should make available?
Off just
your instinct.
Just, yes.
Yeah.
I think we do. I think we do run the risk of missing something or missing an opportunity to make sure that we're adequately prepared to welcome students. And I think that those are the conversations that I'd like to continue to have about how do we do that. But I think if we're only looking at numbers, I think numbers tell a number story and they don't. And we would want to make sure that we have a student story.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Does anyone else? I don't know. We're not, I'm sorry, we totally put you on the spot, but I just want to make sure you have a voice.
Thank you.
Were all of Ms. Jones's questions, were you able to ask all your questions?
I think my questions were maybe a little bit more like rhetorical, like just like, these are my questions that I have, and asking like you as the committee to think about those questions as you're making the decisions more than, because I've had information sessions with Dr. Like I've talked about some of like the facts. I know those. It's just more of these are the thoughts that I'm having, and I'm wondering in the questions that I have.
But you weren't cut short.
I was not cut short, not at all. Thank you very much for asking.
Anybody else?
Madam Chairman, could I make an announcement about your boat building class?
Sure.
I've seen the boats that the classes have built, and they're absolutely magnificent. This Thursday night, 5 o'clock at the boathouse, they're going to launch a boat, and it's going to be dedicated to John Riley III, who passed away earlier this year. He was a Hull High graduate, a Marine Corps veteran, and I know that the Riley family and all the students that built the boat will be happy to have you attend and give me your support. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. Yes, sorry, just so they can hear you. And then I think we have to.
I just think in like transparency with a lot of information being out there, I learned a lot of important things tonight about transportation costs, things that people I think were having questions on. And I think if there's a way to have this information, like a question answer on the Hull Public School pages or sent out to families, because not everyone watches the meeting or looks at meeting notes, I think that would be really important for people to have access to the answers to those questions.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you. Yep, we'll make sure of that. Yeah.
And so just, sorry.
I was just going to remind people that they can also always email us any questions they have. They can get an individual
Email Eliza
response.
Haggerty.
You can email Eliza Haggerty, ahaggerty@hullpublicschools.us, I believe. Yeah, email me. I'd love to have a conversation with anybody who's got questions. I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. And I just wanted to confirm, the agendas are posted online on our website, right? So they will have access to all of these documents. Is that accurate or no?
Not all the documents, just the thing, but if you
Just the
want-
agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can always put things that we've discussed on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we probably want to do something, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I just don't think people know to look or actually do the work to look.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, before the rumor mills continue to start and the misinformation gets out, like, being transparent with some of these big questions and having it the place, like, accessible to parents, I think might help too.
They're also really hard to find since the switchover.
What is hard to find?
They're hard to get.
The
The
agendas?
documents.
Yep, the agenda. I have a hard time finding it.
Oh,
and
on the
I-
new website.
And I know it's,
And you're working, yeah.
so for parents, I think, I can find it now, I know how to, but I think for parents, it might be.
On this note, a parent did reach out to me and suggest that possibly a link to the weekly agenda, like a generic one, not the specific one, but a link in the Blue Notes would be welcome, so that it would be very easy for parents to find the agenda. That was a parent suggestion that I did pass on, but now
I'm
it's.
going to wrap us up here, and I'm going to say Miss Fleming always, Miss Fleming, Fleming used to post it on Facebook. Remember the week before, so maybe that's something we want to think about as well.
I mean, I do that.
Oh, you do. And Miss Hedrick also does such a thing. Thank you, Lily, for doing that. Great. So I think, in terms of next steps, I think what we have here is a whole lot of information and guidance and thought. I'd invite you to meet again with the principals and see if there's any refinement of numbers, but I think that genuinely consensus is we're heading in the right direction, and yes, and.
So I'll do my best to keep the school committee appraised of how this unfolds, but, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to get back to you with some of the answers. We spent a good chunk of time tonight on those, and now we have to do the hard work of getting it out there.
Getting it out there,
So
yes.
I'll keep you updated as to what unfolds with this.
And as we wrap this particular agenda item up, again, I know it's been said, but thank you to everyone who had the courage to, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and ask your questions, and I appreciate that very much. So, okay. Anything else you want to talk about tonight, Dr. Jetty?
Well, we're halfway through my report, I just want to be clear, so.
Yes, no, I know.
So next up, we have the superintendent evaluation. And so I know that Maggie has shared with the school committee the summary of the commentary that came in. I did not get that until late in the day, so I have not had a lot of time to look at it, to be honest. But I know that based on the dialogue we had last time, that information has been compiled, so.
And Maggie, what do we need to do with that information? We need to vote to approve it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on Dr. Jetty's evaluation before I open it up to a motion to?
I just have one question. Under step 2, it says there's unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, exemplary, and then there are numbers. So like one of them's a 1, and then there's 3. That's 4. If my counting is correct. Why are there not 5? Why is did someone not?
Yeah, someone didn't do the first.
The first part. Okay, thank you. I mean, the form
Not
is
everybody filled out comments on each one, and not everybody filled out
that top part.
the
Okay,
top, yeah.
thank you.
So if we vote to approve it as is, you're good to go? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Brendan, for the second. All those in favor of approving Mike's evaluation? Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous.
Thank you. So next up, I want to talk a little bit about this document, and this is a very long, elaborate document because Appendix E stands for evaluation. This is how we evaluate our staff. Appendix E is in the collective bargaining agreement, and from what I can tell, it hasn't been touched in a number of years. So when DESE came out with the new evaluation process, they had a proposed process that was adopted kind of wholesale by Hull, and then that is what resides in the collective bargaining. So, and I'm going to invite Ms. Capadonna and Mr. McDonald to comment further on this, but basically we started off, and Ms. Weber said this earlier, it was a very collaborative process last summer. So members of school administrators, actually it was a whole school administrative team, and the HTA had members who sat down with a consultant who sort of walked us through how to update to the new rubrics. And for school committee benefit, we were on the 2014 rubrics. There were 2018 rubrics and 2024 rubrics, and we sort of jumped over the mid-set. So we never adopted the 2018 revised rubrics. We've now jumped into the 2024 rubrics, and it was a very collaborative process. And then after everybody reached an understanding of what that was going to look like, we had a subcommittee that we had bargained that was 3 school administrators and 3 members of the bargaining unit, HTA, who sat down and went word by word through that and made sure that the practice that's outlined in Appendix E matches up to the best practices based upon the new rubrics that were developed and the process that DESE has. So it was a huge undertaking. And so that's where I want to pause and let Christine and Mark sort of explain who was on their team, how many meetings they had. I'll tell you it's a lot because they were in the room next door to me, and what that process looked like from their end. So. You know what, for the mic, go to the.
We have one correction, one edit.
Yes.
I have right here.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Mark McDonald, HTA co-president, also high school teacher, civics, history, AP government. So I served on the JLMC that was just described by Dr. Jetty, and I agree 100% with the way you laid out that process that we went through in revamping our evaluation process, updating to the new 2024 rubric for teachers. I agree 1,000%. It was a collaborative process through and through, but I want to especially speak to the work of the JLMC this past school year, which was even more so. You know, just recently at our second to last meeting, we met at least once per month, most often twice per month. And so I just really wanted to speak to the idea that we were all really proud of the work that we did together in revamping this really lengthy section of the contract that was overly verbose, but also very unclear. And as you mentioned, did not necessarily match the process that we either had previously practiced or envisioned practicing in the future.
Mark, can you tell us who else was on the HTA team? It was you?
Myself, Hannah Hutchinson, another high school teacher, and Ann Conley from the Jacobs School.
We had both principals in elementary school. So just to echo everything that Mark has said, what we did this summer was we did a lot of looking at the new rubric. And we made some changes. In the past, teachers were evaluated on what we called the 12 power standards. There were so many more, but that is what we did for years. And so we felt like it was just getting outdated. And so this summer we picked three in different categories, and we had teachers have some choice. We felt like our process was just kind of cumbersome. It was confusing, trying to remember what everyone was doing. But what we really appreciated as, I think, the union and the leadership team was staff having choice in what evidence they were giving to their evaluator that they wanted to showcase. So instead of telling educators that they have to provide evidence on specific standards, we were giving them some room to pick and choose what they want to provide to demonstrate where they are within the rubric and what they would like to show. So we did a lot of that work so that teachers can do that, and that was, I think, a real benefit as part of our process. As Mark said, we went through everything, and we made a lot of great changes. We tried to really make it clear. It is still very robust. There is still a lot in there. We were hoping to really shrink it down, and we found after a meeting that we really couldn't, but because there's really important language in there for everyone to follow. I think we have a great product. We are really proud of it. Within your document, we made one slight change just now because we had one of the members notice something that wasn't consistent. So we're going to point that out to Maggie. But if you have it open right now, it is section 8, evaluation cycle, observation and practice with a PTS, which is professional teacher status, and it is letter A. And it
it says the educator whose overall rating is proficient or exemplary must have at least one mini observation during the evaluation cycle. And one of the practices that we noticed that it says that, but what we follow is that we do one mini evaluation on every staff member every year. So cycles for professional status are 2 years. Within that, each year they would have a mini observation. That is something that we agreed on. We just didn't catch it. We talked about it. We talked about that we wanted to be consistent. So that is the language that we missed, but it is in other parts of the document.
Yes, yeah, and just so really quickly, I think this was really the idea of the administrators on the committee, the idea to create a very simple visual timeline that we've attached to the end of the appendix, and then we'll also post to the teachers to be easily accessed online and hard copies if they want. But in that timeline, it was a representation of a lot of the agreements we came to at the table. One of those agreements was that we believed, both teachers and administrators, that an evaluator should be in the room at least once per year. If I just said this to a member and a few members, but if I'm being professionally evaluated, right, my position relies on that evaluation. So if someone's going to sign off on an evaluation on my professional duties, I want them to be in my room, and I want them to see the great things that are going on. And not only that, we spoke a lot throughout the year the idea of this being a process of support, of mutual support, really. So if an evaluator is not coming into my room, and there's improvements that I could be making that I might not catch on my own, that's another job of the evaluator, to show me how I can improve in a supportive, collaborative way. So it's sort of twofold. I want them there to see the great things, but I also want them there to help me to get better. And so we think that maybe going for an entire year and possibly not having anybody come into your room is a misstep. So just again, that change that we had just made to Section 8 reflects the intended change, the intended language that is already represented in the timeline at the end of the appendix.
And so the HTA is currently voting on this, right? So, so we don't yet know whether it's been ratified, but our request is that the school committee ratify the work. It's got the full endorsement of both teams, and the assumption is that the HTA will ratify also, and then we'll be able to work this into the collective bargaining agreement. It'll become the new Appendix E. And so if we can get a positive vote from the school committee tonight, we can then enact all of this for the start of the next school year. So that's the hope. I know it feels a little down to the wire. It's been a long, extensive process that began over a year ago. So, and there are steps that we have to follow to get it to where it is. So.
Yeah, and I think one last thought might be that nothing's ever perfect, but this document is leaps and bounds better than what was there before. So I think it's important that, especially going into a bargaining cycle and then following school year, that if there are other tweaks we might need to make, maybe those are things that we can hash out at the bargaining table. But for now, this is a drastic improvement and something that any teacher, any administrator can look at and understand very quickly. And we really believe it's a great product.
Wonderful. Any questions?
I just want to also say that we had input on both sides. Mark was bringing it back to the members. We were bringing it back to the leadership team. So it wasn't just the committee members, the 6 of us. It was the entire district that was really combing through it, providing suggestions. Our leadership team did the same thing. Mark and his team came forward with, can we make these changes and do these things? And we had a really great conversation. So though there were only 6 of us doing a lot of the work, it was really, I think, a collaborative effort on both sides, so to speak. And then Maggie did her magic in cleaning up everything, all of our edits, and making it look really pretty. So that was really helpful. So thank you, Maggie, for all that work, because that was a lot of work.
Questions from the school committee?
What is a mini observation? Is it less than 15 minutes or something? Is it called out what that means?
It is called out. It's definitely called out.
I didn't see it.
The duration. So a mini observation is just an administrator walking into a classroom and observing. Whereas a formal observation is a teacher provides a lesson plan. There's a designated time that they're coming in to observe. And then following the observation, there's a post conversation where you're having a conversation about the observation. And a mini observation can be at any point. And then it has to be more than 10 minutes in duration.
So an administrator goes in, spends 15 minutes in there. Do they provide any sort of like feedback, like, hey, I really enjoyed your posters or something? Is it written or just verbal?
So a mini observation
no
is
expectation?
a written document where they're provided with what they saw and then what if there's recommendations or just
praise, for things that they're saying. And then there's the follow-up conversation as well sometimes, if necessary, or there's opportunities for that.
Okay. Is there a word for for an administrator just kind of coming in for 5 minutes and just poking in?
That's just like a walkthrough. So
Okay.
administrators can go in and walk through at any time, but really we want to make sure that we're capturing a snapshot, and it's not those 2 minutes of chaos, so to
Sure,
speak, because
of
there's
course.
education chaos, right, where things are going on and maybe there's, students are they're not behaving. So we want there to be a point of time where the teacher can make corrections, do something that rectifies what's going on, so it's not just this 2-minute segment of time. We want to make sure there's about 10 minutes that we can see something happening.
I see. Thanks.
Can I just add to that too? My takeaway too on that is there's the mini observations is a scheduled point of time where you're actually receiving potentially some feedback or an evaluation, where a walkthrough is just, I'm just popping in. It's more casual. It's not, not to evaluate anyone.
Right. I think it could be both. I think, during a walkthrough, you can walk through and say, wow, I was really impressed with the instructional strategy that you were doing in that moment, or how you reacted to that student who was fussing or crying, those kinds of things. So you can give feedback in that moment, but really that written feedback is what is part of their evidence binder, the work that they're doing.
It's not part of the formal evaluation.
Right, and we do, I'll speak from experience, we do rely on our evaluators to help us to, supply evidence towards our evaluation. They'll catch things and give me praise on things that I wouldn't praise myself for, that I realize after the fact really does belong in my evaluations, so we appreciate that.
Do you guys do peer-to-peer, or is what you described peer-to-peer? Like if there are 2 history teachers, for example, or 2 civics teachers, one is 22, just starting out, and one's 55 and 20 years, 30 years experience. Do you ever kind of teach each other, like in programming engineering terms?
Sure, there are lots of cases where teachers work on team goals,
Yeah.
but the evaluation is yours as an individual.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you had a more seasoned
By the
teacher?
administrators. The evaluation is performed by the administrators.
Okay, got it.
The mentoring program for new teachers, the team goal piece. When we're doing learning walks, there are peers that are part of that process, but it's not evaluative.
Right.
Right.
This process we're talking about is administrators and individual teachers.
Gotcha.
All right, shall we move forward with a vote to ratify on our end, assuming that the HTA will be doing the same? Yes, so is there a motion? Okay, Lily's making a motion that we vote to ratify Appendix E. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Courtney. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, we're excited to ratify that. And I just want to compliment everyone involved. This is such a great example of collaboration and working together on something that is so important. Feels really great. So congratulations to everyone who made that possible. School committee, that's yours. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so school committee meeting date. So having listened to feedback, we're proposing a slightly different schedule for the year ahead. I think now that we have the 5 members of the school committee returning, the structures that were developed last year, we're prepared to move ahead with this process. So essentially, it's a meeting on the first Monday of each month, and that would be the regular business meeting of the school committee. There are a few exceptions. September, the first Monday is Labor Day, so we're starting on the second Monday. When we get into March, we do need to have the time with the advisory committee, so that's kind of a second meeting in that month. May, we have to have the reorganization meeting after the election. So there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, the plan is to have that one meeting on the first Monday of the month. And then we're reserving the rest of the Mondays for subcommittee dates. And, in that column, we're saying to be determined. So as we get the subcommittee structure up and going, we have those other dates available so that we'll be doing some of the work in those meetings that are listed in the gray column to the right. So that's the vision of this and the way it was laid out. Having talked with, Kyle came back from the school committee training and said, for a committee our size, it seems like many are doing the one meeting a month with the subcommittee work. So we're floating this out as a proposed calendar going forward.
Any discussion on, I mean, and full transparency, I think there was originally Brendan that said, I think this could be done in one meeting instead of two. I'm excited about the idea of having more set subcommittee time, because I think that that's the piece that's kind of missing right now. Any other discussion?
It's great.
I like the idea of, in theory, some of our committee members are on multiple subcommittees, so I wonder if they're due to meet, at the same time, how do we just kind of play that by ear based on what needs to be done? Is that kind of the vision?
I think that's why there's the and/or piece, I think.
So some people might be an and?
Some people, yeah, or some meetings might be, yes, or we could switch them
Yep.
to do the
So
different-
flexible is what I'm hearing.
We will figure it out.
Okay.
Shall we vote on these dates, or?
Well, we have to get the retreat
Retreat date.
so then that we can vote on the entire calendar.
My other concern, though, is, I know today was a heavy meeting date agenda,
this
and
would
it
be-
is 9 o'clock, so if we reduce these to just once a month,
Are we
I
gonna
love
end
you
up-
guys and all, but I don't really want to hang out till 9 o'clock at every meeting.
That's really rude.
My bedtime alarm went off at 8:30.
Oh, gosh.
So that is my concern. Is
Is that your alarm?
if there are,
amazing.
heavy agenda months that possibly we
We could
scoop
split 'em
up one
up.
of those subcommittee meeting dates and
I think that was part of the idea when it was first floated around, like to reserve that for, it's still our day that we have to commit to.
But also, we structure the entire calendar by meetings or by month. And don't forget, we did not have last week's meeting and we won't have next, so we had to merge the two.
So this is three meetings.
That's why it's top-heavy.
Yeah.
This time.
Or 2 meetings, at least.
Right, so this is a good example of what happens when we have a
Well, no,
once
we'd
a month.
structure it so that we won't get out at 6:30 one night and 9:30.
So she's saying the agendas would
Will be balanced. I see, okay.
Yeah, balanced.
The other piece is that if you have 2 members who are on one of the subcommittees, you're coming in saying, this is what we've done, here's the work and the recommendation, and if we end up having an hour discussion about that, we're defeating the subcommittee purpose. So there's a certain amount of you're releasing to the subcommittee some of that deeper
Discussion, yeah, yeah.
exploration, right? So
Sure.
it'll be less discussion here among 5 if 2 people have dug deep. No guarantee on that, but it's up to you to see how you want to manage that.
Also, tonight was a bit of an anomaly because it really felt important that we listened very carefully and.
I think that 26, 27 is going to be a year of try new things.
Side quest.
Let's try new things.
All right.
And if I may just come back to the retreat question, so the spreadsheet that got shared, we're really down to 2 choices, and everybody is so busy, right? So July 28th, Lise, if I have this right, you said you could be available on July the 28th.
If I said that, it is true. I do not have my paper calendar in front of me.
Okay, no worries.
So you can all laugh at my expense.
And
Yes. So it is the day I plan to do laundry between 2 trips. So I would do that for you guys.
Bring your laundry with you.
So there's that date that sort of popped up in July again. And then the other is the August 10th and 11th. And it was just double checking with Brendan.
You can't.
You cannot. You are traveling.
No way,
Okay,
yeah.
so we,
Not traveling, about to go traveling
Yes.
for 2.5 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
so then the question is, which is the date that we want to land on?
But you are available on that 28th?
Yeah.
All right, July 28th it is. Oh, sorry, just kidding.
Is that bad, Lily?
Yeah,
Oh, for you too?
Oh.
Okay.
My
I need
digital
to-
calendar's loading.
I need to follow up. Are we,
I thought the 21st was sent, what was it? It was July 21st.
Well, when I offered the last week in July and the first 2 weeks of August, Eliza could only do,
There was my fault in that you offered 3 weeks, and I thought the retreat was like a week long.
Oh.
I did not realize it was one day within those weeks, so that is my,
The
my
28th
mistake.
works for me.
So sorry, now it's on
the
TV.
memo on the 28th, but that's okay.
All eyes
So
are on
Courtney?
Courtney.
I am trying to
Okay.
find the calendar,
I know, I'm just teasing you.
I was really banking on the 10th or the 11th.
I was too.
Come on, Brendan,
Wait,
just
so
change your
Brendan, there's no
plans.
chance, like, you, no.
No. And you can go, I've said before, you can go ahead without me and I can catch up.
You're gonna miss so many things.
I know. Or we do it in September, when we're just back,
Nope.
in session. Or I also suggested 2 half-days,
Yeah.
I don't wanna do that, for
no?
sure.
Or even a Saturday.
Offense.
I'll commit to it.
July 28th?
Sure. I'll take an additional day off at work.
I put it in green for a reason, Maggie.
There you go.
Can we
We willed it into being.
did we consider weekends?
We talked about it, but I don't think anybody.
Well,
Did
we
the
meet-
group-
we
did
meet
the
with
committee
administrators
consider
too,
weekends?
like, they're not gonna wanna.
Oh, the admins.
So we do ask the admin team to also attend
Yeah.
portions, so
We don't want to
it's
ask them
it's
to also
more
come in
than
Saturday.
more than just the 6 of us. So if we can
Okay,
do the
July
28th,
28th.
we have our date.
Day of the week
Okay,
is that?
so we need a
The
vote.
Friday?
It's a
Okay.
Tuesday.
Is there a motion to accept the school committee 2026-27 calendar?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Brendan. The irony. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Lily. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, unanimous.
Excellent, perfect.
Which of the week is that? The Tuesday maybe?
Thank you all for that. So I'm going to skip the 5-minute safety update. I'm going to save us a
Okay,
little time. So
amazing.
let's keep going.
Thank you. Moving forward then, I don't think that we have any policy issues, and is there a subcommittee? Lily, I know you had something you wanted to share.
Yes.
About subcommittees.
I'm currently on the EDC.
What's EDC stand
It's
for?
Economic Development
Economic.
Committee liaison
Mhm.
seat, and it apparently expires June 22nd. So my appointment on these boards doesn't align with how we, so I feel like we gotta figure that out. But I've also reached out to Lori and I haven't heard back yet. It's as simple as writing a letter of interest to remain on the board, but it's something I need to run by all of you. Also, to leave, I have to resign, and somebody else would have to show interest, so I just want to follow the
I, for one, am
rules.
perfectly comfortable with you reapplying. Is there anyone that disagrees with me?
I second that.
Okay.
I think she should
Thank you,
sign up for all the
guys.
things.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I know it's not actually a vote.
I
but-
appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you, honestly, thank you for doing it, though. You're doing such a good job that we feel like we can trust you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What else? Subcommittee?
Strategic,
Is that it?
I just wanted to, Aliza and I kind of touched on wanting to maybe open the conversation with Maggie on the policy subcommittee at some point this summer. Just because we got the bell-to-bell bill coming, and I just want us to be able to meet and discuss a plan or something that we can present to the school board by the retreat.
And our administrative team is also looking at that, so.
Perfect.
I think, let us have a dialogue. We'll reach out to the subcommittee, the policy subcommittee. We're looking at what Mask has, but the bill, the problem is the bell-to-bell bill hasn't been finalized yet. So even though it's passed in both
Well,
branches.
what I'm reading is that we get to decide. So I want to hop on that.
Well, my understanding is that the House says we get to decide, but the Senate says we don't get to decide. So that's the piece that I believe still has to be reconciled, and I'm looking to Rob, because you've looked at that. I might have that backwards too, as to which house, but until the final the final language comes out, I think we're still unsure what we get to decide versus what we get to be told.
I think one thing that Lily and I discussed pretty at length was about like making a cultural shift in the building. Rather than it being like the state has demanded this, that we embrace some philosophy of culture shift and make it our own and in a positive light.
We look forward to the fruits of all of that labor. No, in all seriousness, we look forward to it, but there's nothing we can do tonight about it, so, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing needed tonight. Okay.
But also, whatever is decided and however it looks, but to communicate that with families well in advance of whenever it's implemented.
for families watching, the bell-to-bell bill is a discussion about whether or not cell phones will be able to be used during the.
Well, actually, any personal electronic device
Any
would include
personal
Apple Watches and the like as well. Or could.
And no new business. Correspondent 2 and comments from school committee members?
Do you want to mention the strategic committee or the strategic plan?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick update. So we had a meeting last Thursday. This Thursday is the final meeting of the strategic planning committee, and that the final product will be in the hands of TLA at that point. So they'll begin working with us throughout the summer to get that finalized. I think we're on track to actually have a very good strategic plan. The big rocks that have been identified make sense. The initiatives are still being tweaked and adjusted, and then the leadership team will figure out what those annual strategic steps are in order to bring that about. So I think we're landing in a pretty good spot. Lily, you've been attending also, or?
It's good vibes.
Yeah. So
We're good.
We're ready, and so we'll have more. That'll be approved by the school committee before the start of the year, hopefully.
Definitely.
Well, the draft will be.
Draft.
You know, the final vote might be at the September meeting, but we certainly are going to know well in advance. Like by the retreat, you'll know what that is looking like.
Thank you for flagging that. Okay. The committee is expected to go into executive session to discuss negotiation strategies with non-union personnel, including superintendent of schools. An open meeting may have a detrimental effect. The committee is expected to reconvene in open session later. In order to do that, we need to have a roll call vote to go into executive session.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brendan. And a roll call vote. Go ahead. I'll start. I, Conley.
I, Hedrick.
I could roll.
I, Littlefield.
I, Haggerty.
All right. With that, at 9:17, we will head into executive session. Thank you, everyone.
You stand.